laying low.
Laying low. Let's ping him and find out.
Cheryl's right. Cheryl's right.
Yeah, no doubt he's laying low.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah.
Over the week, Chris and I were trying to make up new slogans for Subway.
It's not human.
Subway. Fuck it.
It's Soylent Green.
David Chang. And then let's try... Yeah, he doesn't even... Does David even appear in the list anymore? It does.
I pinged him. I pinged him, but I think he's offline.
Okay, I just pinged...
Chris just DM'd me that he's on a plane right now, so he's on stage, but he can't talk for a bit.
Who's that?
Chris. He's on stage right now, but he's on a plane right now, so he won't be able to talk
Chris
for him.
Jones. Chris Jones.
Oh, okay. And then I just pinged Justin to find out, just to let him know that Jeff is doing such an amazing job over there that he needs to get worried. He needs to start.
He need to up his game.
He better.
But already his PR job's gonna go with AI. So what's he got left? Jeff takes this one. Yeah, he's got to worry, right?
Yeah. And for those who don't know what we're talking about the Politics and Media 101 Club, which you must join. But only if you like good content, and only if you like to learn stuff. You like to improve yourself. If you like to be a better, more informed individual, know what's going on planet Earth. Otherwise, skip it. You know what I mean? If you're into being a loser, fuck it. Just avoid it. Do you. You know what I mean? You do you. So, happy Tuesday, everybody, wherever you happen to be. We're about to get into it with the top 10 biggest stories in tech from all over the world. Can you believe it? I'm excited. How you feeling, Cal?
I'm good. I'm ready for it today.
You sound a little something's going on. I hear something.
I'm here for it.
All right. It sounds like you've been DMing, Cal. So.
Oh, you know me so well.
Yep. So, okay, biggest story at this very moment on July 20th is that Amnesty International, let me refresh just to make sure. Yes, it's still the biggest story. Amnesty International researchers published a toolkit to help anybody scan their iPhone or Android device for evidence of compromise by NSO's Pegasus software. And what is Pegasus software, you might be asking yourself? Well, Pegasus software, made by the NSO, is this very clever little piece of spyware that was created by NSO out of Israel, which they then sell to other countries. And there's been a huge headline yesterday, 24 hours ago when we met here is when this started, but there's updates. Oh yeah, there's updates. So when it first came out 24 hours ago, the Washington Post and the Guardian came out hot on the mic with their friend Edward Snowden, saying that Israel-based NSO group's malware infected 23 devices belonging to government officials, reported executives, and activists out of the 67 that were checked. They only checked 67 and 23 were infected. That's a pretty high ratio. And it turns out the first big headline that got this whole Pegasus Gate party started was that there's 50,000 people that are that have been now part of a list. And we had somebody join us earlier today who said, yeah, that's just the public list. The private list is far bigger. And what's the difference? Well, the difference is Pegasus, it was revealed, had sold this to Mexico, Morocco, and dozens of other countries. And when those countries, Mexico had put 15,000 people on, Morocco had put 10,000 on, you're halfway there to 50,000, and you've just got Mexico and Morocco. That's 25,000 out of the 50 right there. And now it's been revealed who was in those 15,000 in Mexico and India, and some of the ones in India. And that was one of the updates about 6 hours ago. So on Mexico, about 15,000 Mexicans, including politicians, reporters, activists, as well as 50 people close to the Mexico's president, appear in a leak as potential NSO targets, according to the Wall Street Post, namely, and the Guardian. And a lot of these big journalist outlets and publications are working together because the journalists themselves are the targets in each of these countries, including the editors. And so they are working together in each of their respective countries to find out who's been compromised in their countries. And so when India did this, we got a headline from India that phones of 22 Indian people who were on the list of hundreds were checked, and 7 had been infected with NSO software. The list includes top opposition politicians. So Prime Minister Modi's main political opponents are compromised within India, because India is one of the clients of Pegasus. So Modi's using it against his political opponents. And that's very concerning. It's very, very concerning because we are now find ourselves in 2021 in an era where we've got these kind of strong talking, what do you call authoritarian type figures in certain countries, like Turkey, like America, like India, like Belarus, like Russia, like a lot of countries where you've got these really strong talking gentlemen who think they've got all the answers. And
Nigeria.
Nigeria. So
Yeah.
it's concerning because this gives them an unfair tool to use against their political opponents, because now they know everything their political opponents are saying and doing and thinking at all times, asymmetrically. And that means they can be taken out and controlled politically and kind of neutralized. And, and you can get very compromising information that you could potentially leak, and you might warn them, I've got political information on you that would kill your political career. So maybe you shouldn't run in the next election, because here's the evidence that I have against you.
Tyler,
Yeah.
just something related to Amnesty and India.
Yeah.
Hope you remember that few weeks or months back we discussed about Amnesty International is being kicked out, or they told that they are going out of India because it's hard to operate in India because of all the investigations. And now that after a few months, and this was like 9 months back, and now this news came out from Amnesty research that a lot of opposition leaders are being traced. So this has created I've been joining multiple rooms in India, and there has been now a conspiracy brewing that whether this was planted or Amnesty International was really going out to plan this on the ruling party.
Well, then why go through all the headache of dealing with all of these other countries if it was, specifically about India?
Yeah, that's very, very true. Because the Indian partner or Indian uh, media which was involved in this is Wire, and Wire is been part of the opposition party, because they are pro opposition party, which means this guy Congress Rahul Gandhi, whose account they have been surveilled. So Wire is being aligned to them. So why is Wire aligned, and Wire is breaking this news? And why is Amnesty is being kicked out of India, or they close their operations in India, and they are doing this research? So there has been, and the parliament session has begun yesterday, or I think yesterday or today, and it came out right on then.
When did Amnesty get kicked out of India?
I'm just reading this news
Right now.
from the Guardian. It was on September 2020.
So
Amnesty to halt work in India due to government witch hunt.
when they were kicked out last September or today?
Yes, last September.
Oh, okay.
One short thing. If you're really, really interested in it, it's an ongoing deep dive room headed by James Assar, which is really knowledge within the sector, running in parallel with this room. I actually did draw sticks of going to tech news or stay in that room. So if you're into and want to know more, you can go there.
So, yeah, this is the first article of today. Other interesting things that we know today that we didn't know 24 hours ago is the software to check your own phone. That in India, the main political opponents and the Mexican, all of the current Mexican people in the current government and their families and kids and everything. And then there, we had a special guest here 6-7 hours ago, who himself was a target of Pegasus precisely because he had created one of the main competitors to one of Israel's other main technologies, which is in Israel is called AnyVision. It's a facial recognition platform. He had created the American version of that called Clearview, similar to the Chinese version of that called SenseTime, or the Russian version called PimEyes. And these facial recognition platforms are very, 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 very powerful. And as has been reported quite many times, that Clearview in America is being used by every government agency and every police department because it's incredibly powerful. Because you can give it a photo of anybody and it can tell you it will show you all the other photos of them and all the other websites containing those photos that has ever been published on the internet. And so it makes it much, much easier to catch people if you have a webcam, if you have a camera around your house, surveillance cam, any kind of footage inside of a 7-Eleven of a burglar comes in and it gets their face, boom, there's their Facebook page. Easy peasy, done. Goodbye, you're done. That was fun. So you can see how police love this tool because it makes it super easy when you have camera footage of somebody robbing a 7-Eleven. If they ever did anything ever on the internet ever previously, boom, you can match it very simply through facial recognition. You don't need to know their name. You don't need to try and find what car they were in and the license plate on their car, right? You can see how powerful that is. And now you know why governments, find that very useful, especially when everyone's coming in through airports. Of course, they're using it at the airport of every country you enter into. So Israel was trying very hard to sell AnyVision, their facial recognition platform, to everybody, around the world. And China doesn't need it because they have SenseTime. Russia doesn't need it because they have PimEyes. And in America's a little more of a, capitalistic society. So AnyVision wanted to sell it in the US, and Israel's an American ally. So yeah, they're getting some American clients, but they were getting a little tired of competing with Clearview, who was winning in the US. And that's when, next thing you know, the founders of the US one, Clearview, were all of a sudden had their phones hacked by Pegasus. Because the Israelis, the AnyVision in Israel works with the Pegasus team and the Israeli intelligence community because, well, why don't we hack Clearview's offices and then find out who their customers are and who their future target customers will be? That would be very useful information. And so Charles, who was one of the co-founders of Clearview, joined us today to say, yeah, I was hacked 2 years ago by Pegasus. And I went to the FBI and the CIA and, we found out lots of other people who have been compromised in the U.S., namely in Silicon Valley, the very highest names in tech, both from the entrepreneur and the investor side. He knows for a fact have been compromised because he was working with the FBI and finding all that out. And he didn't name names, although you could understand how much attention, how many people would love to hack Elon Musk's phones, right? Safe to say his phones are under constant attack, and there's not a lot of spyware out there that is capable of cracking iPhones. In all fairness, I mean, Apple's iPhones have been cracked by Pegasus, and in fact, not only 14.5 that you're likely using today, but also 14.6 that you'll be using next month. Pegasus is already working on if you are a developer and you're using the 14.6 beta, doesn't matter. Pegasus can still get into 14.6 currently. Hopefully, they're going to fix that before the big general population version launches in the next couple of weeks. But for the time being, yeah, there's nothing Elon could do to stop Pegasus from coming in because it doesn't matter how good your hygiene is and not clicking on random emails and links, from strangers or photos or, there's things that you shouldn't do if you want to avoid having your device hacked. That doesn't matter in the case of Pegasus. It comes in whether you want it to or not. And there's really nothing you can do. So it's very possible Elon's phone was hacked by Pegasus. And the question is, which government did it? Or how many? So it's going to be the point I'm saying is we're at the page 1 of a very interesting book, and there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff that shakes out of this, and there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff that shakes out of this because notably nobody from Apple or Google are saying anything about this yet. And more interestingly, not a single politician in the American government has dared to say a single thing about this yet. Why? Because their phone was hacked and they have a dick pic in their phone. And their political career is over if they dare say anything against this. Yet, yesterday, 6 hours after this all came out, they did get together, and the US, together with the EU and the UK and Australia and Canada, New Zealand and Japan and NATO and Norway, all came out saying that China's hacking. Everybody, that's the headline. The US, EU, UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Japan, NATO, and now New Zealand blame China for cyber attacks, including the massive attack on Microsoft's Exchange Service server. So why are they all, the whole entire fucking world's coming out and saying, China's doing cyber attacks? But what? All of your phones are all compromised by Pegasus. What? What's going on here? I thought we were talking about Israel and Pegasus. China who? What? That's how you know shit's about to go down.
May I also add, Tyler, that the idea of compromising information started off before before we had smartphones that can be hacked, right? So a lot of people will say that the Epstein outfit was in fact a massive compromise outfit. Right, and then Ghislaine and Maxwell were part of this to actually make sure that they could have sufficiently high levels of compromised information on various people that could silence them and to also promote the activities that they had to promote. So so that is the one bit that I'd like to add, and I'd also like to add. Do you remember Mitch McConnell? I mean, Trump famously called Mitch McConnell a son of a bitch, a dumb son of a bitch, and he did nothing, absolutely nothing. Lindsey Graham did so many incredible U-turns, right? And if you just search on Twitter for what does Trump have on Lindsey Graham, the Twitter feed is enormous. Why? Because everybody knows that if anybody is compromised to actually act both in their own interests and in the interests of the company, it's Lindsey Graham. And the question is why.
Okay, so we've covered the top 2 stories of the day, which are both about data, if you were paying close attention, right? Here's the third biggest story of the day, and see if you can make the connection of the common thread here. Story number 3 from the New York Times. New York Times says they now have sources that a group of data scientists inside of Facebook asked Facebook senior executives for additional resources to help measure COVID misinformation on Facebook at the start of the pandemic, but the executives denied the request. The company doesn't know some specifics about how falsehoods on COVID-19 and vaccines for the virus spread on its social network, but so the data scientists inside of Facebook were like, hey, you know what? That's data. Give us the data. We want to crunch the data. We want to see who's behind this data. We want to know everything about this. And Facebook said, probably not. Let's not do that. That's the headline from the New York Times. So what do these 3 stories have in common? If you guessed data, you guessed correctly, my friends. Well done. You're paying close attention. And Biden has backtracked now officially on his Facebook criticisms. Says he meant top users spreading vaccine misinformation were killing people and urges Facebook to reduce misinformation. Okay, well, the journalist asked you, what is your message for Facebook and platforms like Facebook? And you said they're killing people. And that's a little bit of a stretch, Joe, that you meant top users on Facebook. Yeah, okay, fair enough. So next story, BlockFi CEO confirms it received an order from the New Jersey Bureau of Securities to stop accepting new interest accounts. Existing users won't be impacted. Story number 5, YouTube acquires India-based social commerce startup called SimSim for $70 million. It's a tiny little startup. And the Google-owned firm said on Thursday, neither of the firms disclosed terms of the deal, but question is, why is YouTube acquiring India-based social commerce little tiny startup called SimSim? It's a trick question. For the data. Because social commerce is where it's at, and YouTube wants to get in on that, and it's a huge battle right now in July of 2021, because social commerce is about to explode, y'all. Like, absolutely go ballistically, the cash register is about to explode on social commerce. And for the 100th time, if you've not heard this rant before, social commerce is the combination of social media and e-commerce, and it's absolutely explosive. And if you thought you were buying a lot of shit on Amazon now, wait until every celebrity on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Clubhouse are selling shit, and you're going to be buying it directly from them on TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram and Clubhouse and everywhere else, and YouTube. When there's a little buy button inside of every YouTube video for every single product in the video, when you can click on any Instagram photo and click on any item in any Instagram photo, click on any item in any TikTok video, any Snapchat video in real time and buy that shit. And all those influencers who are spending all of their time trying to get followers and likes and hearts can now get dollars for selling stuff. It's about to get huge. It's about to get way bigger. Collectively, it becomes way bigger than Amazon, by the way, if you just give you an idea of how big it's going to get. And we know this because this has already happened in Asia. And it's happening in Thailand, where Lakeisha and I live, and we watch it every day. And just to give you a little more view of how it's happening now, we see it now, today, here, it's live, and it has been for several months now. What's happening is, yes, Instagram is now focusing more on video. According to Instagram, that was a headline 2 weeks ago. TikTok is lengthening the length of their videos. That was a headline about a week ago. And I've got news for them and for you. What's actually going to happen, as has happened in Asia already, is it starts off where you're going to be able to click on the photos of Instagram and in the little TikTok videos and in the little Snapchat videos and buy the products in those photos and videos. But that's great. And those influencers are going to love that. But these influencers, they're clever little cookies, these people. And they realize, and by the way, they're really greedy as well. And that greed is going to make them ask the following question. I wonder if I did a long video, if I'll get more sales than if I do a photo. And it turns out that they do. They make a lot more money from a video than from a photo. And then they ask, what if I make the video twice as long? Will I sell more or less? And they're going to do that video. And it turns out they're going to make a lot more when they make the videos longer. And then their greed and their cleverness is going to lead them to the following question. What if I just did a live stream? Because this app does live streams. Can I do a live stream and sell stuff? And they can, and they do. And here in Southeast Asia, it's phenomenally huge. And then they start selling 10 times more than they ever did in their videos and their photos. And then they're doing 24-hour sell-a-thons, live streams, day and night, mountains of meth, jumping up and down like a jackass on methamphetamines, selling everything in a room to a web camera on an iPhone. And they are answering questions to people, and they get tens of thousands of people watching them and their live streams. And those people are frantically in the comment section saying, is this, can you zoom in on that item, turn around the back of it? Oh, sure. And then the person in front of the camera saying, oh, you want to see the back of the thing? Okay, let me open up for it. And they're conversating in real time with the people, the audience, the live audience, watching and asking questions. And the people watching live are clicking the buy button, and the crazy salesperson hopped up on meth is saying, oh, I've only got 10 of these left. Buy it now. I've got 5 left. I got 30 seconds, and now they're gone. Hopefully I'll have some next week. Okay, next item. Boom, boom, boom. And they spend about, 5 minutes per item. and they hype the shit out of it and they sell out of it. And then they go on to the next item, and they've got endless items because the people who are really good at this start getting approached by all kinds of products, literal warehouses of products, because they now realize, this person's selling 10,000 bags in 5 minutes. That's what's happening. So that's when I say, when it's going to be bigger than Amazon, when you add in the fact that Facebook and all these apps are going to compete with each other now to get all of the influencers who are going to be doing all of this social commerce selling. And now you know why the headline says YouTube acquires India's based social commerce startup called Simsum, because Google wants that juicy, sweet market opportunity, that avalanche of money that's about to happen in India with social commerce. And they're not stupid. They know what's going on. So that's why they acquired this social commerce startup, Simsum. YouTube acquired it because YouTube wants to be one of the key players in this game, and they should be, and they will be. And it's too much money to not throw everything you got at it, because there's hundreds of billions of dollars at stake in this, especially in India. So now you know why YouTube acquired this little. So sorry for the long rant. Michael, what's up?
You saw Jeff Bezos and his buddies just got back from space.
Oh, they just got back?
Yeah, they just landed safely.
An hour ago.
They're probably on their way to Subway. Yeah. First thing he says, give me that tuna. What
that juicy tuna.
Did they? So it was a mission accomplished.
Yep, him and 3 people. I did not realize that Mark Bezos, his brother who went with him, is 82 fucking years old.
Oh Jesus, I didn't know that.
He literally just went to space and came back. An 82-year-old. That's pretty wild.
Good on them. And then there was an 18-year-old with them. Somebody who won the auction went with them and all that. But
yep,
all good. He's back. He did it.
It wasn't actually Michael. It wasn't his brother. It's the oldest astronaut.
She was that's right.
That's
right. There we go.
Okay,
that makes more sense.
She was part of the Mercury 13. Just because she was a woman, she never got into the. So she waited 60 years to get into. So yeah, that was the story behind it. It was great.
Now it makes more sense. Okay, so we've got a few more of the big headlines to get into. What do we got? We got Australia.
Tyler, can I just jump back to the social commerce
piece? Sure,
because,
do it, yeah.
We've talked a lot about it. And, I think one of the questions that I've had, and maybe we've talked about it in the passing, is, okay, so what's Amazon doing? So as you were giving your latest update, I hopped online. They apparently launched Amazon Live in 2019, but really didn't put a lot of resources behind it. And then I saw a Forbes article in February saying that they're going to launch. So I just logged into amazon.com/live, and apparently it has launched, but clearly they're not doing enough to really gain the traction that we see here in Asia, because I for one have never heard of it, and I use Prime all of the time. But so it'll be interesting to see whether they actually get the right influencers and the traction behind something that maybe they'd been experimenting with, but it still hasn't taken off.
Yep. Well, it's a kind of I mean, you and I know, because we see how it works in social media here, and it's not, to me, it's not a surprise that Amazon isn't on top of this. They're making too much money with Amazon, and they have, by the way, I mean, they've been on a singular mission with regard to kind of e-commerceifying traditional retail. And they've not been focusing on mom and pops because it's just too much. It's like picking the tree. It's like they're going to pick the lowest hanging fruit, and all that fruit at the top of the tree. Yeah, fuck it. Let Shopify climb the tree to get that stuff, because it's just a little too much work. We got other trees to pick. So now Shopify is coming out and making it really easy to, this ladder that they built makes it really easy to climb the ladder and pick all of this other fruit that Amazon didn't want to bother with, which is all the mom and pop shops. Which it turns out, when you add up all the mom and pop shops, it adds up to, about the same as Amazon itself. So it's like, Amazon's going around picking all the trees without a ladder. Shopify came out with a ladder, made it easy. And then same thing happened in China. You had Alibaba picking all the low-hanging fruit, and then Pinduoduo came out with their clever little ladder. All the mom and pop shops, all the fruit on the top of the trees, and they got all that. Hey, it's kind of two different, markets, really. But it doesn't surprise me that Amazon's still not focused on the mom and pop stuff, because it's kind
Yeah,
of,
you're right.
they don't
I mean,
want, they have enough headaches right now dealing with, you know, the people in between mom and pops and the bigger retailers, like doing all the customer service for them. And, because if we're getting, it's really difficult when you write software, if you make a startup. Let me give you one of the best pieces of advice I ever got in tech, ever, 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 ever. From when I was doing a startup, it was geared towards small mom and pop businesses, little yogurt shops, little hamburger stores, and I had a great idea, because Google was, a friend of mine was leading. Google was going to copy Yelp. You had Yelp, which was Jeremy, and Yelp was exploding, and people liked Yelp. And there was a bit of a beef between Google and Yelp, because Google was showing Yelp results, and Yelp had mixed emotions about this, because now people saw their Yelp reviews in Google without ever going to Yelp. And so was it causing people to download the app? Was it causing people to go to Yelp's website? Well, no, not really. It was, people would go, they'd see the reviews, and then wouldn't go to the Yelp site. And Yelp was like, this kind of sucks. No one's coming to the site anymore, because Google stole the content and put it on Google. And Google said, oh, you don't like it? Okay, no problem. We'll make our own Yelp system of reviews for every business on the planet, right? Called, the Google My Business. So, they built that was run also by a friend of mine, and I knew even before they had started building it that they were going to build it, because we had a meeting about it at the San Francisco, at the New Market Street. What was that hotel called? The Plaza Hotel, Grand Plaza Hotel. Anyway, so I knew they were coming out with that before it even launched, and I thought, oh shit, every business needs to know that all their customers are going to be reviewing them, and it's going to really have a big impact on their business when these customers are leaving these Google reviews on their business. And, if you get a 1-star review, that's going to hurt your business. And how are you going to deal with that? Is there a solution for that? Not really. There isn't. So I made a solution for that called Text the Boss. So it was a simple little phone number. I used Twilio. I got a million little phone numbers that were all SMS enabled in every zip code. And now I sell these. Now I buy them for $1 a piece. I sell them for $30 a piece. And I build a little software so that they put a sticker on the wall and says, hey, you have a problem? Don't complain on Google when you get home. Just text the boss right now. Here's the phone number. You can SMS right now. And it worked. It was great. It was lovely. Everybody loved it. But when I went to my dearest friend investor, Mark Suster at the time, who was the best investor in LA, still is. And Mark's a personal mentor, as you know, if you have been with us here at Tech News Around the World for a while. He came in and did a special episode with us for like 2 hours. And we talked about that story where Mark said, you know what? Don't build this startup. Don't do it. I said, why? Because he's on the board of another startup that sells to hamburger shops and yogurt shops and, whatnot, which is the touchscreens that you order on when you go there now. He's on the board. It's called Emanate. And he's on the board of Emanate. And he says, listen, I'm on the board of this company. And I listen to the sales calls when they call the owners of the McDonald's and the Burger Kings and the, yogurt lands. And those are really painful sales calls, because those owners of those franchises don't understand technology at all. At all. They don't know where the reply all is on an email. They don't know how to use the tab on a keyboard. It's really painful to write software for that industry of small mom and pop businesses. And I say all of that, and you know what? He was, and I told Mark, you know what, Mark, I appreciate that, but you know what? I know there's a huge demand for this. I'm going to do it anyways and whatever. But long story short, he was right, as usual. And I told him when he joined us here in Tech News Around the World that he was right. I said, Mark, you know what? You were 100% right. I really wish I would have listened to you. And I say all of this because Amazon knows this as well. And that's why Amazon doesn't focus on small mom and pop businesses, because they don't know anything about tech. And it's very hard to make it easy enough for them to use. It's really hard. It's super hard to make tech super stupid simple. Imagine the stupidest people you know. And there's a lot of people like that. And imagine trying to write software that's easy enough for them to have their own digital store online. It's not easy. They're going to have a lot of questions. They're going to need a lot of hand holding. Amazon don't have time for that because we got money to make elsewhere. So Shopify comes along and says, you know what? We're actually going to do the impossible and make it easy enough for the stupidest people you ever met to make an e-commerce shop. And if we do it, we're going to get everybody, every little cake shop, flower shop, doggy, kitty cat shop on the planet to use our stuff because Amazon's not bothering. And they're right. And that is a huge opportunity. And they've done it. They have made it simple enough. But the key is making it simple. The problem is it's not easy to become a destination. And YouTube learned that. And that's why they sold to Google. And that's why they allow you to embed your YouTube videos on every website in the world, because it's not easy to bring everyone initially when you're a new company starting out. It's not easy to get them to come to some new thing like youtube.com. You didn't learn about YouTube by going to YouTube. You learned about YouTube by some blog that had a YouTube video embedded on it. And so that's a genius situation where you can distribute, your product, and then they learn later, this is a website that I can go to where all the videos are on one website. All these videos I'm seeing all around the web embedded on all these websites. Anyway, so Shopify is taking that approach. They're not forcing you to come to Shopify to set up a shop. You can build a shop inside of Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest. They have all, and Google with YouTube, and they've all announced their Shopify partnerships all in the past 6 weeks. And that's why Shopify's stock is exploding, because they are at the center. They are doing the piping and the plumbing that enables this social commerce revolution inside of all these social apps. Social media apps that you have on your phone are now going to become e-commerce apps due to Shopify. And Shopify is able to become Shopify because the financial pipe that allows the actual transaction of the money is actually Stripe. So Stripe is also going to boom. And that's why Shopify bought $350 million worth of shares of Stripe, because they know if Shopify becomes successful, so will Stripe. But Stripe's already becoming successful anyways. And by the way, they're just now making the key hires to officially do their IPO, which is likely to be one of the biggest IPOs of all time, even bigger than Coinbase was recently. So, the social shopping things, one of the big things in 2021. And Aaron can talk about it. He worked at MasterCard and he works at Fidelity now. What's going on with social shopping, Aaron? He's a little tight-lipped at the moment. But
so just real quick,
yeah.
though, I mean, you're spot on, because I've been watching and kind of just scrolling through Amazon's live page, and it feels really corporate. It feels like they're pushing their deals and have hired influencers to sell, as opposed to the live streams that we see in Thailand, which are really, I mean, they're generated by the mom and pop, sister, auntie, uncle shops themselves, and to contrast, when I watch those videos, they're highly personalized and engaging. It's not as though they've hired someone to push product, because in many cases they don't have a staff beyond maybe one or two part-time employees, so they're very much vested in what it is that they're selling. Whereas on Amazon Live, it seems like they have scheduled broadcasts to push different lifestyle segments. I also saw that they were hiring a bunch of personal shoppers. So it'll be really interesting. But once again, I think you're spot on. I mean, they're still not targeting the mom and pops. I think they're just trying to drive traffic by using influencers to push deals that once had been static.
But that's the crazy thing is Amazon is now a destination that people go to, but Amazon doesn't have the influencers. There isn't really if Paris Hilton wants to sell some product, she can now get a cut directly by doing it in her Instagram or her TikTok or her whatever, and get paid that way in a much easier way. And so all of the influencer economy, the social media economy, is going to play into the hands of Shopify and whatnot. Anyway, so there's another article that is kind of relevant right now. Right now, it's like the sixth biggest article in tech at the moment. And this is coming from gov.uk's website. They say the UK is proposing new pro-competition rules for the digital economy, including allowing its digital markets unit to suspend, block, and reverse decisions by tech giants. Because they know these tech giants are about to take over the fucking economy. They know that all these mom and pops are about to fall into the hands of Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, which is also owned by Facebook, WhatsApp, which is also owned by Facebook. They know that Facebook's about to come take over all the mom and pop shops and get e-commerceify them. And once they've become e-commerceified, 80% of their business happens inside of the app. 20% of the business actually happens in the brick and mortar store. Guess what? Doesn't make sense to have the brick and mortar store anymore, does it? No, because it makes more sense to do business based on data than just on setting up a table in the middle of a park and hoping people come by. It works much better if I happen to know everyone who wants lemonade right now and I'm selling lemonade. That it's just an unfair advantage to do it in the e-commerce context. So you're going to have a real change in the geography within cities. And the UK starts to understand that. And that's why the UK proposes new pro-competition rules for digital economy, including allowing the government the ability to suspend, block, and reverse decisions by tech giants. Because here's what happens. Here's why the UK is concerned, and they should be. And kudos to them for figuring it out, which is if Facebook native app and Instagram and WhatsApp start sucking up all the mom and pop and shop businesses, and they've got 1 million mom and pop businesses, and then the government says, hey, Facebook, you're doing things we don't like, stop doing that. And they're like, hang on, we got a million of your businesses on our platform. Are you who's the boss here exactly? Because just like Facebook made it super, super simple for your super stupid cousin to have a web page on the internet, he couldn't have figured out how to make a web page on the internet without Facebook, right? Some people did. 1/10 of 1% of geeks figured out how to make a typekit, or one of those old school WordPress sites, where you had to have your own server and download the shit and do some HTML and get all that running. That was not so easy. And Facebook came along and said, you know what? We're going to make it so simple that everybody, the 3.5 billion people who have internet access, we're going to make it easy enough that all of them can get on. That's a lot of dumb people. That's 1 billion stupid people. Half those people are below average intelligence, right? Half of people are below average intelligence. And so all those people, all 3.5 billion people who can get on the internet are on Facebook. That's a testament to how easy it is to make a Facebook page and use Instagram and whatnot. And they're going to make it that easy to make an e-commerce shop. And that's a huge opportunity. And when they've done that, now you've got millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of businesses on your platform in the US and in India and in these big countries. You've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% of businesses on your platform. And the government's going to tell you what when you've got half the businesses on your platform? So they're starting to understand the power that these platforms are going to have. And they're not just going for commerce, the stores, the shops. They're coming for the medical industry. They're coming for the education industry. They're going to suck that stuff right up. They're going to suck all that left unimpeded. And that's why all of these countries around the world are freaking out, trying to rein in the powers of all these big tech companies because they've got an unfair advantage with this tech, all of this data analysis, data scientists. They can do fun stuff with these numbers that, it's an unfair fight for people they're competing
and Tyler, with. Just to, it's a pretty standard formula to become an MP here in the UK. You promise jobs in the high street. You come in, you obviously trash a couple of other policies that, either the Conservatives or Labour, whichever way you go. But one of the key things they do is promise jobs in the high street. And coming out of the pandemic, that's a scary thing for them to promise, right? Especially since the high street is these small businesses that, and it's a very, because it's a condensed country, right? The high street is very critical for these local economies. So now you've got this real challenge on how they even accumulate power. And once they have power, as you're saying, they just can't wield it in the same way and keep it by doing the traditional things around promising, brick and mortar jobs. And so they're going to regulation now.
Especially in small countries, because if you are a mom and pop shop from a small country, not India, right? Like pick pretty much any country. I mean, even Europe's are fairly large, but yeah, pick Portugal. So you've got a mom and pop shop in Portugal selling lots of stuff to Spain, and now Facebook in Portugal, you get half of the businesses in Portugal on Facebook, and they've closed their stores, so they're just on Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, which are all owned by Facebook. And then are those stores more aligned or kind of in bed with Facebook or with Portugal at that point? Like with where their revenue's coming from, Spain and France and Italy, they're doing deliveries, throughout the region. And now they feel like, what, my business, my livelihood is more about Facebook than it is about Portugal. And then it's an interesting power dynamic at that point. And
so Tyler,
hang on. So
Tyler,
what if Facebook goes into, well, we have Apple and Google and Amazon. Let's turn to those brands for a second. Let's use Amazon for a second, or Google, and they're going big into health. And so they've got the businesses, and they've got your health, and they've got your education, and now it's them versus the state. And it's like these tech companies are becoming much more powerful than states. Yeah, go ahead, Karam.
This is Vinay. Yeah. So
Vinay,
quick
sorry.
thing, the whole conversation in India, particularly with the multinational or the international digital companies, is around the conversation on digital colonization. And a great example of that is Walmart took so much stake in India about shutting down mom and pop, all of that. And when they invested in Flipkart, which is Amazon's biggest competitor, no one saw a problem with it. And same thing with one of the smart thing Google is doing is, I tweeted to you this morning, $10 billion India digital fund that they've created.
Yeah.
And they've done
Google,
their
that's
first
right.
couple of,
exactly
first couple of investments. And that's considered you're investing in the Indian startup system.
How much? 10 billion?
10 billion is the size of the fund that Sundar Pichai announced last year.
So the CEO of Google announced a $10 billion fund to help digitize India.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
now you know why.
That's okay to put.
And now you know why the next headline: Uber expands grocery delivery service to more than 400 U.S. cities and towns, including SF, New York, Washington, D.C., partly fueled by a partnership with Albertsons. And once they control all of your delivery of everything, these tech companies, make no mistake. Oh, by the way, all of the delivery of everything within these cities, Amazon's doing a lot of the delivery for their own stuff, but Google, very notably, and Tesla are in a battle to be the autonomous delivery networks for everything that gets ordered everywhere all the time. So, including movement of people. And movement of people used to be a sort of a social service in the form of buses and subways and trains and stuff. That used to be the government's job. No, don't need you no more. Thank you, government. You can just stop. You can just go hang out in the corner. You can go do some finger painting, because we're going to handle the movement of people from now on, because we're delivering all the food and e-commerce orders 24/7 anyways. We might as well let people ride along. Oh, you want to go somewhere? Yeah, okay. Well, this car was going there anyways. Hop in. We'll be there in 3 minutes. So it gets very interesting very quickly when everything's being delivered, including the movement of people, by these big tech companies. And this is another key area that the government used to play a very key role. You pay a lot of taxes for the roads, for the trains, for the buses, for the trams, for the movement of people. That's a key government infrastructure type of thing that is now being put into the hands of the private companies, big tech companies specifically.
Yeah, it feels a lot like digital imperialism. We went from invading countries with forces, and now we're doing it in the digital space. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah,
and that's why data sovereignty has become such a hot topic. Everybody wants the data.
And now you know why the government is obsessed with controlling the data. And that's why they don't want these big tech companies. They're forcing how these companies do what they do with their data. and how they can share it, who's seeing it, where if it leaves, they don't want it leaving their own borders. They've woken up to the power of data, and they need to control it and manage it, just like they manage it and control their money, just like they manage and control people going in and out of their borders. And they're they're perceiving data the same way.
Yeah, Cal, I think you brought up the other day the whole concept of the East India Company, right? So there was an article or a meme going around about Facebook India Company or Google India Company, and this time those guys took physical resources. This time it's data. We're not going to let them take data out this time around. So there's no Kohinoor of India that's going to sit in the UK anymore, right?
So this big story
is that a meme that's just sorry? Oh, sorry, Tyler, go ahead.
No,
I was just saying, is that a meme that's going around in the social media sphere, or just generally? Is that?
Yeah, it's just going around. I mean, it was on
Okay,
a TV
got
show,
it.
but when I find it, I'll tweet it out to you.
Oh, that's interesting.
So DuckDuckGo, I'm tweeting out the story about Uber opening 400 new cities for delivering of groceries. And the reason they want to do that is because they already want to have a 24-hour full service automated delivery network system in every city. And so they need more things to deliver. They've got the people through their app. They've got products and services. I mean, they got products through helping deliver orders from various merchants and whatnot. And now they're going to partner with the supermarkets to deliver all of the food orders. And they eventually want to do everything. By the way, that was the vision. Well, not from the very beginning, to be honest, but they quickly realized after about the first year that, oh my God, we're going to be this in the future. It's going to be, delivering of everything all the time. We're going to become an automated delivery network. Where they didn't actually start out with that in mind, but they got there pretty quickly thereafter. So I'm tweeting that story out right now from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. Look at my photo, and the Twitter account is in my head above the photo, where we tweet out all of the stories in real time as we discuss them. And here's the next big story. Number 8 of the top 10 biggest stories in tech at this moment. DuckDuckGo, which was making a private search engine that doesn't track you on what the searches you do, is now making a private email protection service that forwards emails from a free @duck.co address to users' regular inboxes after scanning them for trackers. So now people can't track you through your email. Very clever service. And you notice, again, what this story has in common with all the other stories. It's about data and tracking. This is not a coincidence that every story is fundamentally about data. So DuckDuckGo is taking this really interesting angle. As governments are waking up to the power of data, so are individuals. And individuals are starting to realize, shit, Facebook's got a whole bunch of my data that I can't do nothing with it. All my photos I ever uploaded out of there, if I decide to leave Facebook, shit, what am I going to do with the thousands of photos I put up there in Instagram or whatever? And they kick you out, or anyone who's ever been banned from one of these apps knows what happens. You just lost a whole bunch of your content. And especially painful in the case of Facebook, because if you've used your Facebook account to log into other websites, and now you can't log into those other websites either. So you just lost all of your photos, all of your communications you had in the past, and your ability to log into, dozens of different websites that you use to log in with Facebook. So this email thing, but from DuckDuckGo, Google has a search engine and email, which is Gmail, and they use the data in both. Yes, they are using the data in your Gmail very extensively in building a profile about you to send you, to adverts and whatnot. And DuckDuckGo is the anti-Google. They did the search engine that doesn't track anything, and now they're doing the email that doesn't track anything, and they're going to try and build themselves up as the anti-Google, and eventually you're going to be very happy to pay for that. Or they'll find other ways to monetize it, but it won't be through advertising, because that's fundamental to what they're doing. So I'm sending out the link to this DuckDuckGo launches new email protection service, which is super cool. What a cool concept. Apple's doing it as well, because Apple wants to take that data tracking ability away from Google as well. And they revealed it in their last keynote that we watched all here together. And it's pretty cool how Apple does it as well. And the next big story is one of the largest, OpenSea, which is one of the largest marketplaces for NFTs, has just raised $100 million from Andreessen Horowitz at a $1.5 billion valuation. Good for them. Andreessen thinks the NFT things got some traction, got some legs. Fabric, which helps companies build their own e-commerce site, raises $100 million. And now you know why. Because every mom and pop's going to build a little shop. And Fabric helps companies build their own e-commerce sites. Raising $100 million at nearly $1 billion valuation. Funding gives the platform developer a value of $850 million. Startup specializing in e-commerce platform development raises $100 million in new funding. I will tweet that out as well. And we just got a couple more, and then we're going to get into why everyone's really here. They're sitting through these boring big tech headlines that your coworkers are tweeting, which is honestly not the interesting ones. And we're going to get into the interesting ones that we, as the tech news around the world geeks, are sharing. And they send them to me through the Twitter account, TNATW, and they've been doing that at the pace of about, since the program started an hour ago, I've already got about 400 that I got to take out the very best ones, and we're going to discuss them all together, and that's where it gets really fun. China calls out 145 apps, including those from Amazon and ByteDance, alleging that they are illegally collecting user info, and gives them until July 26th to stop. You have 6 days to stop. I love China when they do shit like this. They don't fuck around. There's no lawsuit. There's no court case. You got 6 days and then you stop. End of discussion. It's awesome. 145 apps, including those from Amazon and TikTok. ByteDance, alleging that they illegally collected user info. You got 6 days to stop. And so it's from the South China Morning Post, my second favorite publication out of Asia. It's from China. And it says the 145 named apps have until July 26th to take corrective measures or face punishment. Okay, I'm glad that got clarified. The Ministry of Information Technology said on Monday, the ministry has named and shamed over 1,300 apps since 2019 for illegally collecting user information, requesting excessive permission, or misleading customers. Amazon's China app and NetEase's Dashin, an online community for gamers, have illegally collected user information, the ministry said in its latest list of problematic apps. In addition, Douyin Lite, a version of TikTok's Chinese app made for lower-end phones, did not clearly display app information on the App Store. And they've called out apps made by Amazon, TikTok owner ByteDance, as well as 142 other apps violating users' rights. Okay, so you've been warned, and you've got 6 days to fix it. I'm sure you've got nothing better to do. So let's see. We've got that one, and just one more big story. TikTok launches what they call Spark Ads, a new ad format that allows brands to sponsor already published posts with the post creator's approval, potentially cutting out agencies. Oh, clever. Super clever. So this coming from Ad Age, I'll tweet this out. Spark Ads allow brands to tap into pre-existing influencer posts. TikTok is announcing today the global launch of Spark Ads, a native ad format that allows advertisers to use organic user posts as part of their ad campaigns on the app, making it easier to leverage trending content and supplement larger campaigns. It's the largest sign that creator content is one of the biggest draws for consumers and therefore an area marketers want to tap. Well, we already knew that from YouTube. What they are doing, just to make this super simple, is they're just copying YouTube in this case. Because YouTube, the way YouTube works is you create content and you say if you're willing to let ads be shown on your YouTube video later, next year, next tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, knock yourself out. Put ads in all of my old YouTube videos. I've got 1,000 old YouTube videos. Sure. Here's the 900 that I approve ads to be put on. Knock yourself out. I don't really care what ad is on them, right? That's what you do if you're a YouTube influencer. Everyone's done that, right? JT, that's what you did with your YouTube videos. Am I right? So then that's great, because then it becomes an auction, and that's what Google really is. It's an auction marketplace, and they can let everyone compete to buy the eyeballs that are looking at all of these videos. And you can say which type of videos and eyeballs you want to attract. I'm only interested in eyeballs from, Latino women with 3 children who live in Los Angeles, who have a college degree, who make more than $40,000 a year and have 2 cars and, eat left-handed. Okay, great. Here we go. We know all where those women are, what those videos those women are watching, and we can put your ad there as long as you are willing to pay this amount. Okay, good, you did. Okay, great. Now, if somebody else comes along and is willing to pay more, well, then you're going to take your ads out and put somebody else in place. And that means that the ads are dynamic based on who's willing to pay the most. So all of those ads you see when you're watching YouTube videos, if you come back to the same video next week or next month, the ad changes. It's not the same ad that you saw when you watched the video a week ago or a month ago or a year ago. And the ads change because it's a dynamic marketplace based on whoever's willing to pay the most at that time. Now, TikTok is now decided they're going to do the same thing. They've got thousands, millions of TikTok videos, millions, just like YouTube does. And now they're realized, advertisers like to advertise on specific content that is what we call historical content. It's already been created. It's not in the future. It's actually in the past. It's pre-existing inventory. So now they can run Spark ads, they're calling it, a native ad format that allows advertisers to use organic user posts, meaning from the past, meaning historical, as part of their ad campaigns in the app, making it easier to leverage trending content and supplement larger campaigns. It's the largest sign that the creator content is one of the biggest draws for consumers, and therefore an area marketers want to tap into. Yeah, exactly. And they can also, of course, target specific creators that they want to be. I only want to be seen on this channel or this creator's channel. Of course, that'll be part of one of the options for the marketers and whatnot, as implied by this article. But yes, TikTok is becoming YouTube, and YouTube wants to become TikTok. And that's why TikTok is making their videos longer and YouTube is making their videos shorter. They call them YouTube Shorts. They just announced it. They just rolled it out globally about 4 days ago. And it's not a coincidence that these two are running head and head at each other, because that's a huge, again, it's a huge opportunity today for the ads that get shown in there. YouTube's already a tremendous business. TikTok just on ads is a tremendous business, but boy, oh boy, does it get 10 times bigger when they turn into e-commerce portals, because you're selling shit in real time. You're live streaming real stuff, making real purchases in real time. That's real money. So they're all about to. That's why they're fighting right now to capture all of that. Everyone's going to make an obscene amount of money. And it's money that was normally going to be spent at little shops around your town. And now it's going to be spent inside of these apps. And these influencers are going to get paid. And the stores that do digitize are going to make a lot of money too, because they're going to get far more reach than they did in their tiny little shop on the corner of your tiny little town. So the shops that digitize are going to win. The shops that don't digitize are going to get killed. Those businesses are going to go out of business. Unless they're a hairdresser, you got to go there to do that. An ice cream shop, you actually got to go there because we can't figure out a way to deliver the ice cream fast enough. Pretty much everything else, the paint store, you might be able to deliver a kitten or a puppy in the mail these days. I don't know. The pet store might be okay. I'm not sure. But there's a huge percentage of purchases in any city can be delivered in a vehicle. And if it can be delivered, it will be delivered. And that store has no business having a shop on the street. They need to be e-commerce and cloudify themselves. And if they need inventory space bigger than what they have in their own home or office, fine, go get a warehouse on the outside of town. That's fine. At 1/5 the rate of the shop that you had in the center of town. But that's the whole new dynamic coming your way soon. So tweeting out that story. And now we're going to get into the fun stuff, all the tweets that everyone had twatted on Twitter earlier. And would anyone like to go first? Anyone see any fantastic headlines since we met here about 6 hours ago? No.
I have one.
Yeah, go ahead, JT.
So this is an article that Cheryl sent in 4 hours ago. It's Snapchat. They purchased or acquired a company called Vertebrae. So Vertebrae is an AR and 3D e-commerce startup, and essentially it helps brands create and manage 3D versions of their goods. So pretty much you upload information or visuals, and then you get a 3D model of that product that you're trying to sell. Now this solves a huge issue in terms of actually having to create 3D models yourself as a brand. And I think moving forward with what Snapchat already has in place in terms of all of their different tracking capabilities, from full body tracking to head tracking, face tracking, eye tracking, hand tracking, foot tracking, and even class simulation, we're going to be able to see now users being able to actually wear, and they're already wearing like entire garments of clothing, but now it's going to be even more easier for brands to actually create these garments for their consumers and users. So this is actually very huge for Snapchat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's super huge. And let me find your article right now. Did you share this one? Did we tweet this one earlier today when we met 7 hours ago? They're acquiring the AR company, right?
Yeah, Cheryl tweeted it, and I just credited her for that.
It's huge for Snapchat. Snapchat acquires AR and 3D e-commerce startup called Vertebrae. There it is. So I just tweeted it from the Tech News Twitter account, and you need to see this, just the photo that's part of this tweet, because it shows an individual holding up a camera. Someone's already retweeted it and liked it, and other people will as they go to the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. And the lady in the photo is looking at glasses that she may not actually have on her face, but the camera shows that she does, right? And that's kind of a mind-blowing way to buy sunglasses. That's wild. I never thought of that. You got to see this to understand it. It shows a lady looking in her phone, and it's like a selfie. She's about to take a selfie, but she's not taking a selfie. She's just looking at herself. But while she's looking at herself, inside the phone, she's wearing sunglasses, which she's not actually wearing in real life. And of course, she can buy them. And then she can swipe right and it changes the sunglasses. And she swipes right again and it changes the sunglasses again. And she can try on thousands of pairs of sunglasses like she's swiping through, potential partners on Tinder. She's looking for potential sunglasses through e-commerce. What an incredibly awesome e-commerce experience that is.
And on the video, you can see that if you want to buy a fridge, you can see it in AR in your room and everything. It's really nice.
Yeah, 4 people retweeted, 7 likes already on that one, JT.
Yeah, that's such an amazing use case. So that sunglasses hut is just a short-term business, isn't it? If you think about it, like these physical inventory with infinite number of glasses you have to put out there. There's obviously you can't put them all out there, right? You can't put all the styles and all the different shades, and then you rent the place. And if you can get a really good experience like that, that's an amazing use case for sunglasses. And it's going to be there for other things, like you said, about fridges in your home and.
Yeah, but let's unpack that for people. So in the case of products for your home, what you'll do is you'll, just like this lady's doing, but you'll turn the camera around to be the outside facing camera. You'll wave it around your apartment, in your living room or what have you. And there'll be virtual objects that you can envision in your room, like something for your desk, right? And yeah,
Tyler,
imagine the IKEA catalog and you want to buy a lamp for your desk. So you hold up your phone to the place where you're going to put your lamp, which is on your desk. And now you start swiping through these 3D AR things that you can now see on your desk. And you just swipe right, just like you're swiping on Tinder, and you're swiping through the lamps and you can see them all on your desk. That's freaking fantastic. Go ahead.
Tyler,
Yeah,
the
Tyler.
concept here is that you're able to upload images into a platform, right? And then it generates a 3D model. So Apple has something similar to this where you're uploading, tons of objects. It's called object capture, and then it renders an actual 3D model for you. So it makes it simple for users and brands to actually create 3D models and then sell them online.
This tech
Um,
has, this tech has been around for a while. There's a lot of implementation details to make all the things click right. It's one of those things that it works really great for a demo, and it's one of the reasons it can get so much funding and so many startups launched in the space. Getting all the components to work seamlessly together and not break on you, and also driving an actual like consumer action. It's one of the things that no one's quite been able to put all the pieces together in a like we've got everything working flawlessly. I think Wayfair was probably one of the few that actually got pretty decently far on this. They had like furniture in the home, and one of the reasons it worked for them is because the purchase prices were so high. Home Depot has got a good lab on this. Lowe's has one. It's kind of a weird it's a weird constellation thing because like it's a consistent pitch where they say, "Hey, business people, look what we can do if we can move all the business, all the retail purchases into the home, and it's going to be this." And any group that does this pitch gets enormous valuations. I haven't seen anyone manage to crack the whole thing completely, but the tech is there. It just needs to be put together right.
But
Chris, can
Snap,
I ask a
Snap
yeah,
is the
Chris?
closest though in terms of a consumer product. Snap because they've always been a camera first company. They've got a ton of building. I mean, I think the idea there also is that you can see like your friend's sneakers, literally not even take a picture. Put your camera on it, and it'll give you in almost 2 clicks. You can obviously you can do the thing where you look at your own shoes, but you can take someone else's shoes. It'll pop up, and in 1 click you can buy it. So they have, I think, the most seamless, at least for smaller consumer products. They're way ahead.
I just love the
Yeah, hi.
swiping right Tinder interface, though. That was never obvious before, where the camera stays still on your living room or the space in your kitchen where you plan to put the refrigerator, and you just swipe right through 10 different refrigerators, and you can see them all instantly how they look in that space. That's a fucking fantastic interface for the AR shopping, AR e-commerce.
So
Suzanne,
this tech,
Charlie,
yeah, I'm trying to chime in. Sorry. We sold a house, a rental house during the pandemic, and it was empty. We staged it all virtually. So the technology is there, and the virtual stage sold the house. So the technology is there, guys.
Oh yeah, no, the
so
technology is not.
I was going to
Yeah,
ask.
the technology's been around for 10 years. But that Tinder-like interface of doing it to me is I mean, there's like several interesting aspects of it. I'm just falling in love with the swipe right interface of moving between the items in the catalog, holding the camera still in the location where you want to find the right, you know, um, item.
Sometimes it's the
user
design of that
experience.
experience. It really comes
Yep.
down to the design. And Chris, to what Chris was saying earlier, I was just quick question to Chris. Just Chris, because you've obviously looked at it and you've seen the execution issues there, right? But somebody like I can see the vested interest of an existing physical player not putting enough effort in the execution there, right? But somebody like Webby Parker, for example, Warby Parker, sorry, what am I saying? They're coming from an, they at least they were. I know they went physical, but wouldn't they have figured out the execution on this? Because I mean, I can imagine, if the technology is there and you've got a bunch of people who understand retail and getting it, that consumer experience, what's the obstacle to this, Chris? I just wondered if you'd seen the specific obstacle or.
Yeah, it's weird. So the augmented reality industry with stuff has been around for a little bit with stuff, and internally one of the challenges that most of the technologists working in the space is that it's frankly a field that attracts a lot more of the high tech people rather than the business people. Just being blunt. So and what will happen is they'll create these amazing technologies. They'll get one or two of big corporate people to say, "Here's the thing." They wow people with a demo, and they say, "Okay, great, let's scale this to everything." And then when they do that, something trips and falls. Either they find out that the 3D scanning is much more challenging than they thought it was, or maybe it was essentially the delivery mechanism wasn't quite as well thought out, or they find out their user studies are essentially for customers just didn't have the UX for it. And it's typically not really I would say legitimate is the wrong word. It's not necessarily things that are insurmountable. The thing is that the commitment level ends up being very difficult to scale beyond tech demo. That's the thing is this field is really, really prone to basically having these incredible tech demos, but then turning into an actual product normally means actually like killing half of the cool things about a feature just to basically make it something that's going to work. One place I've seen that augmented reality works really well is when there's something physical and bulky that's going to be very painful to move, like refrigerators, furniture, factory equipment on the floor, things that essentially where if you don't get this right, it will cause some amount of very extreme amount of inconvenience, and it works really well as an augmentation, like literally augmented reality. It tends to fail where you're looking at, I've got a small trinket that I'm basically just going to do the same thing I've always done, but just with a slightly more amount of convenience. I haven't seen that case really work out in practice. It needs to actually have something that's not just kind of better, but like orders of magnitude better than the existing state of the art. That's just like a little impression thing. For people who want to learn more about this, Augmented World Expo is a fantastic place to look for things. There's also some really good venture capital firms that do some stuff in the space. I can make recommendations of people with stuff, but it's a fascinating field. It's one of these things where it's like the tech is there. It's just it needs some commitment to get over the hump, and it requires a lot more upfront than people realize to get from the demo to the actual product.
Cal, Warby Parker actually has AR features incorporated into their overall organization. So if you go on your desktop or on your mobile device, you're able to actually try on sunglasses,
Okay, cool.
anything like that.
Accurate and detailed 3D models are going to become a lot easier when the LiDAR comes out on the next iPhone. So that'll change things quite a bit.
Yeah, that helps a lot. Well, one more thing is that the LiDAR technology, it shouldn't be understated what a big deal it is for the chips for that becoming cheap and commonly available. Apple's currently just basically building up all the capability to flood the market, essentially. Apple's, they're late to every game, but they sweep up all the cash for everyone. That's typical thing for them. And I find it amusing when everyone says, it's like, oh no, this is the year that Apple's going to launch the augmented reality glasses. The thing is, by this point, they've had like about 40 different models internally, and it's really funny to see essentially which one gets more traction because they kind of float a few of them out to industry insiders or whatever. I personally predict that essentially we have a few key killer features that essentially that a lot of people don't realize you can do. One of them is actually content catalogs. This is actually one of the more weirder parts about this. You can scan something all day long, but actually a much more effective technique is just to actually, the problem is doing it in the wild. It means you get unexpected artifacts and rendering errors and things, and it's kind of difficult to really make those work. What works really freaking well is when you already do the scanning yourself at like a central location, control conditions, like an Amazon type facility. You could just like machine gun through like 10,000 models or 100,000 models and have them all in a uniform set of quality, uniform set of standards. And then what you do is that as the consumer side, you're not necessarily scanning the object, you're doing more of a 3D search space where you're recognizing the object, but it makes it look like it's doing the 3D scan from scratch. And it's kind of a weird combination of those. You combine that with the LiDAR technology where it's able to get close enough, and then it's like, oh, this is a thing, it's a 3D model, and like, oh wait, I know what this is. And then the moment it goes, I know what this is, there's this moment of recognition, bam, it downloads the 3D model seamlessly. GLTF file format, that was just a side note. Anything connected to the GLTF file format is a really good way of learning about the technical side of this, because it was a huge problem just to even get 3D models seamlessly into mobile in a streaming format that could actually preserve all the high-end features. That is only relatively recently that we had that technology developed, standardized, and put into 300 different of the major pipeline platforms. That was a huge breakthrough, and that's where a lot of the energy is cycling around it. But the key thing is that when you have that recognition capability combined with the scanning capability, it's not that it has to carry 100% of the load. It's that the ambient infrastructure is basically there, so the developer only has to worry about the key part is saying, what is the experience that I want to deliver to the end customer and into the end consumer? And that's where it gets a lot more interesting, is when they can spend less of their time rolling the technical infrastructure of how do I do 3D interpolation and clean up point clouds, and more of a, we want to accomplish this objective. Here's the 3 off-the-shelf technologies, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, cool. Now here's the business case. Here's this part. It's much more plug and chug than we need to break getting 24 PhDs here to get localization working. And that's really where the field is moving. And I'm very excited to see essentially that it looks like it's not solved, but it's getting pretty good. And I think that we're going to see a lot more usage of it in the near term future.
Very cool. So, other awesome headlines that I've found since we've been here, and by the way, JT, your tweet
Hey,
is up.
Tyler.
Yeah, 1 second. Your tweet is up to 10 retweets and 12 likes and 2 comments already. Go ahead, Gabby.
I just want to tell you, so I'm not going to give you the article because it's misinformation and one may be true, but it's been leaked that Nancy Pelosi in one article contracted COVID and she's been fully vaccinated. But the other article that I see says a White House staffer and her aide has contracted COVID-19 and are fully vaccinated. What makes this important is because today or in the past 24 hours, Sean Haggerty, a Fox News person that's been an anti-vaxxer, is now on TV, at least on Fox News, saying you have to take COVID-19 more serious. But he is also on one of the developing apps, Getter, where he hasn't said a thing. But I think this is important because this gets to the misinformation that they claim is around social media. And now, since that has been leaked out, we'll see what the truth is in
You
the
know what?
next upcoming hours.
I imagine. Well, here's the thing: is Israel did everybody in Pfizer in collaboration with Pfizer, right? And they have one of the highest vaccination rates, and they were one of the earliest to do it. And what they're realizing now is Delta is arriving in Israel, and people are getting Delta, even though they have the highest penetration of vaccination of double stabs of Pfizer. And what they're noticing is of the people who are getting it, it's people who did the earliest people who got vaccinated back in January, and then less people who got it in February, and then less people who got it in March, and then anyone who got it in April is not really yet getting it. And so they're starting to think that there appears to be about a 6-month. If you've been vaccinated for more than 6 months, you start to become more susceptible of getting Delta, not in a super serious way that sends people to the hospital, thank God, but are still getting it. And like Michael, by the way, didn't you get double Pfizer, Michael?
Yeah,
And then
he's probably resting.
Yeah, he's double Pfizer.
right,
Yes.
and then he
But
just
I'm
got
not sure how many months ago though.
right. But of course Nancy Pelosi would have been one of the very first
Oh,
people to
Michael is
get it.
awake.
Okay,
Michael, when
hang
did
on.
you get double vaccinated?
So Nancy Pelosi and the people in Washington, D.C. were also the first people to get it in the U.S., which was probably back in January, which is why they are now likely to be able to get it again. So, I wonder, let's turn it to John to see if...
By the way, Sean Hannity also is backing off on things. So
Yeah,
I think they're
I
just worried
mentioned
about
that.
getting
Yeah.
sued, I think, for wrongful death or something like that.
Yeah.
And some countries are playing with a third dose, like
Yes,
Brazil just started a trial.
That's one of the big headlines I have coming up here soon. Is there's a lot of talk about third doses now. And by the way, because Pfizer in Israel right now is talking about third doses. Pfizer talked to the U.S. about a third dose, and the U.S. said, come back with more data. That was about 2 days ago, the headline that I read. John?
Yeah, so this isn't terribly surprising in that your antibodies peak a period of time after your second jab, and then they slowly decline.
The peak is about 6 weeks after, if I recall correctly. Yeah.
For the mRNAs, yeah,
Yes.
it's different for J&J, for example. It peaks much later.
Yeah.
But the antibodies, if you have a high titer of antibodies, which is why we give monoclonal antibodies to people at high risk, if you have a high titer of antibodies, can really shut the thing down quickly. If you don't retain a high titer of antibodies, you still retain a clone of those B cells that make those antibodies. It just takes them a while to wake up and say, hey, let's crank up the production of antibodies, which is why people are getting relatively mild infections. So what the Israeli data suggests is that over time, while your antibodies decline and you're more susceptible to being symptomatic, you still have the machinery behind the scenes to step up to the plate. It's called an anamnestic response, which is a double negative, means without loss of memory. That clone steps up to the plate, starts producing antibodies, and you just get a later response. So the question is not necessarily are infections increasing, because you probably do, if you're exposed to the virus shortly after getting vaccinated, the virus probably does replicate to a very, very minor extent, but remains undetectable until the antibodies wane and you rely more on cranking up the production from that, sort of the reserves that are back in the memory B cells and T cells. So the question still remains, in order to keep those memory B cells vigilant and active and at the ready, how often will boosters be needed? And no one really knows the answer to that question yet. What we do know is that people who are significantly immunocompromised can really benefit by boosters because they get such weak responses initially. So the story is still unfolding, but it's not a terrible surprise that there is some loss of protection from mild disease as the antibody titers wane and the reserves need to be called up.
Tyler, it's Asif here
Yeah.
at the bottom. I was just going to say, in the UK, as you know, the most predominant variant is the Delta now. But I've just been told that nearly 60%, and clearly there is a weakening of the link between getting COVID and hospitalization. And so vaccination is the solution. But 60% of the hospitalization going on in England, I can't say for the rest of the UK, in England, are to people who are already double vaccinated, which is quite worrying because last night I held a reception on Freedom Day with the mayor of West Midlands with about 100 plus people at an art gallery. So
what's the
let's
source
see. I'll
of
let you know.
that data point?
Sorry?
What's the source of the
The source
60%?
is my sister is consultant dermatologist and part of the team in NHS,
Is
and
it?
she's the one who sent it to us on a private.
Yeah, please. I would love to see it because that seems unusually high.
Yeah, no, I was. I'm just telling you literally today because we were planning to meet up with my parents.
Lovely. I just
And
if you can share it, I would love that because I would love to verify that.
Yeah, that's a stunning
If
statistic.
if
If it's
yeah,
if it's corroborated, that's a
if I
stunning
remember,
statistic.
because I saw this post, I saw this thing, but it was corrected after. There was an error on it. I saw this post, and then they corrected
okay,
it after.
Yeah, it doesn't sound likely because that's about the prevalence of vaccination. So what that would be saying is that your risk of getting infected is unchanged by the vaccine, even though your risk of hospitalization is less. That's a little troublesome to believe.
I
Anyway,
agree,
yeah.
but
But if you have it, great. If not, that's okay. We'll just have a healthy skepticism until we see the receipts.
yeah, I
Because
agree totally.
yeah, okay. Thank you for that, though. Money, where are we at? Okay, other fantastic headlines. And the Sentinel-6 satellite, which you've not heard of, but maybe you will, is now tracking Earth's rising sea levels with unprecedented new accuracy, according to Space. So I'm retweeting that one out, and that is a very useful satellite indeed. Thank you for that one, Poppy. And speaking of climate
On that
change,
note, by the way, if people
plenty
haven't
more climate for
seen
you to
this,
jump into there, Dan. Climate change is coming for
go ahead.
Christmas trees now. The triple digit temperatures are scorching the Christmas trees that are happening now that are meant for, chopping down in December or late November. All the Christmas trees are already getting burnt to a crisp. So you might need a VR Christmas tree this year. Go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say on the sea level rise, people might have heard about the moon wobble. The
Yes.
moon has a wobble. Did we talk about that already? I don't recall.
18.6 years. Yes.
Yep, you got it. Half the time it emphasizes tides, and the other half it de-emphasizes tides. In the 2030s, it's going to emphasize, and that's going to be on top of sea level rise, which means more flooding than you might have thought. But we'll see. Thanks.
Yes. Yep.
It's unrelated, but if you look at Christmas tree harvesting with helicopters, it's really freaking impressive and really cool.
Oh yeah, how they do the big saw, like it's wild.
Just like flinging logs through the sky and just like literally like 5 or like 8 a minute. It's like insane.
Yep. So here we go. Japan government says companies targeted by China-backed cyber hacking group. According to Reuters, the Japanese companies were targeted by a cyber hacking group called APT40. Government spokesperson Katsunobu Kato-san said on Tuesday, adding, well, I have to click to find out what he added. Let's see what he added. Adding, so let me read it again. Japanese companies were targeted by cyber hacking group called APT40. Government spokesperson Katsunobu Kato said on Tuesday, adding, the Chinese government is highly likely behind the attack, he says. And what else do we got on the China front? Beyond security crackdowns, as you know, as you may know, you certainly know if you join us here regularly, China's cracking down, doing these what they call their security crackdowns on all of the big tech companies. The headline right now from Reuters, thanks to Radeja, who just sent this in, I just tweeted it out. The new headline is Beijing charts state-controlled data market as they're now, and that this is getting really, really interesting because let me read the beginning of this article. China's sweeping regulatory action against its internet giants, such as ride-hailing firm Didi Global, which has sent chills through the industry, is part of a broader national project to create a domestic marketplace for the country's vast troves of data. So that is a continuation of a really concerning development whereby the big tech companies get these data audits, and then they're told how to manage their data in a way that the state approves. And now they're building a marketplace of the data, as it says, an internet, which essentially a domestic marketplace of the country's vast troves of data. Super interesting to watch what's going to happen next. They are building a consumer credit score to tie in with the social credit score, which will then likely have your driving information. And you think Pegasus knew a lot about you. Wait till you see what China cooks up. Pegasus, and speaking of Pegasus, here it is again. Pegasus, why unchecked snooping threatens India's democracy, according to the BBC. It says, you feel violated, that there's no doubt about that, says Siddharth Varadarajana, co-founder of The Wire, a nonprofit news and opinion website in India. This is incredible intrusion, he says. Nobody should have to deal with this, he says. He, according to media reports, is one of the activist journalists, politicians, and lawyers around the world that have been targeted with iPhone spyware sold to governments by an Israeli firm. Of a leaked database of 50,000 numbers of interest to the firm's clients, more than 300 reportedly belong to Indians, according to The Wire. The Wire was one of 16 international media outlets which investigated the leaked list and the use of Pegasus spyware. This is not the first time Pegasus, which can infect smartphones without users' knowledge and access virtually all their data, and which is made by Israeli software firm NSO Group, has been linked to the targeting of journalists and human rights activists. And it's a very long story, but it essentially makes the point that it's a threat to Indians' democracy. So we're going to tweet that out, and thank you to Radeja for sending that in. And hackers, speaking of hackers today, it's been revealed, stole a terabyte of data from oil giant Saudi Aramco, which is no ordinary oil giant. It's actually the world's largest company, if I recall correctly. And they captured a terabyte of data, as the headline says, and it's for sale for $5 million or to the highest bidder, according to the hackers. And it includes lots of interesting stuff, like the database of the 14,254 employees, copies of invoice and contracts, information regarding pipelines and clients, and what seems to be a significant amount of security-related information, including network layout, mapping of the IP address, Wi-Fi access points, IP cameras, and IoT devices. The hackers are selling the entire data dump for $5 million, but have said they will expunge the entire data set from their systems for a one-time payment of $68 million. Okay. So let's see. No doubt we will learn more in days to come about that. And thank you for that one. Instagram pushes weight loss messages to teenagers regarding eating disorders. According to The Guardian, Instagram's algorithms are pushing teenage girls who even briefly engage with fitness-related images towards a flood of weight loss content. According to new research which aimed to recreate the experience of being a child on social networks, researchers adopting mystery shopper techniques set up a series of Instagram profiles mirroring real children and followed the same accounts as the volunteer teenagers. They then began liking a handful of posts to see how quickly the network's algorithm pushed potentially damaging material into the site's Explore tab, which highlights material that the social network thinks users might like. And I believe weight
That's pretty
loss.
cool.
Yeah.
Like as a research method, I'm surprised we haven't seen this before with things like, are people using this more consistently? Because that's actually, like, I'm just thinking about a lot of the journalism around the space has been relatively surface level with things. That's actually, that is a general technique. You can get a whole lot of articles about that, but also it's a pretty good proxy for how the algorithms are actually approximating what people are doing.
Yeah. And apparently these types of ads were recently banned in Pinterest, or I think Pinterest somehow internally made a decision to ban those types of ads or something. So
Didn't France like regulate this recently, talking about like body image and like their whole like they were doing some
Norway
thing?
Norway is
Sorry.
not allowing if you're an influencer and you edit your photo, you must say and show that you did, which means it's all opt-in, although unless there's punishments, I don't know how on earth they could possibly manage this. I think it's a far better system you could do globally instantly if Instagram allowed me, someone who never edits my photos, to get a little special mark that shows this is an unedited photo. And then that could be global. And then everyone would know, oh, I want to do unedited photos too. And then if your photo is edited, everyone would know instantly. And then young women around the world would realize, oh, wow, what a coincidence. All the photos of every woman in Instagram are edited without having to ask them to nicely opt in to showing that they edited themselves, which they'll never do. It's just such a stupid policy. Just get Instagram to do the right. We should push on Instagram to do that. I don't know why, because it's a really cool. It would. I think it would push people into wanting to do, but I guess they don't. I know. You know what? I take it back. I know why they won't do that, because the secret sauce to Instagram is all of the editing and tweaking and filters that they've spent, so much time invested in, because it makes you as a person feel like you're fucking Picasso. And that's the whole secret to Instagram is you talentless hack now feel like you actually are an artist.
Tyler, could I jump in real fast?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Dakota.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's all about the algorithms. It's all about the psychology. The point is to keep people on as long as possible.
Yeah.
So they want to create this fake idealism that makes you keep looking at more girls or more guys or whatever it may be, something that is so out there that is unobtainable. Let me put it that way. You keep scrolling, and that's the secret. It won't ever go away because they're looking at how much time you're spending on that platform, and they understand. They see direct data that shows these things that are super edited make people spend more time, so they even feed more of those. That's yeah.
Very briefly, I know one of the main things in a lot of marketing is basically setting up people with like this level of insecurity, saying you're perfectly happy, but you would be more happy if you got this, or you would be more beautiful, or other things. That's old. What is kind of interesting, we have this level of micro targeting. We talk about how bad this is on a regular basis. It'd be nice to imagine a world like, let's imagine a wonderful, utopian, magical wonderland of the future. It'd be kind of cool if you actually had this level of psychological targeting you could actually use to build up people and actually like add healthier stuff into it, and to do so without turning into some sort of like social credit dystopia. I'm just saying, if we're getting to the level where we can manipulate these things so intimately and so aggressively, it'd be interesting if you could say a version of the future where you have like a localized version, something that's working on your behalf as a sort of like emotional agent or a psychological agent that is actually interpreting the information in a way that could actually build up your psychological resilience over time rather than basically making you more vulnerable for push marketing. It looks like it's at least theoretically possible. I don't know who's going to be incentivized to actually build it, but it does look actually kind of interesting that these things are actually something that we might be able to be working with in the near future.
Okay. So
For what it's worth, the FTC does technically has put out uh, some authority that says, the use of the use of filters could be considered deceptive advertising. That's not a solution that scales very well, but they could at least send a couple
yep.
messages to some, if there's anything really that's
Yeah.
deceptive.
Tyler, just
I got some breaking news. I know what you're going to say, Asif. I'm going to help you do it. We got
okay.
breaking
Thank you.
news. And the breaking news is about COVID, about the topic we were talking about earlier with Professor Asif. And he and Jean Francois and others have been working in the background while we talk about tech headlines. They were in the background finding the receipts. And the breaking news is that I love everybody here in tech news around the world. While we were talking about, all of our fun little headlines, Professor Osif and Jean Francois and others were in the background finding the data and the receipts that we were looking for about what Professor Office mentioned, which was, and by the way, he was correct to bring up the point because it was published that somebody named Valence had said that 60% of people being admitted to hospitals with coronavirus are unvaccinated, and no, that they were double vaccinated. Sir Patrick Vallance told a news conference 60% of coronavirus-related hospital admissions were double jabbed people. He said that. It was reported. Professor Ossis was purely just sharing it, which he's totally...
And this guy is the UK government chief scientist advisor.
Yep.
And I've known him for 20 years. I know Patrick very well.
And now he's issued a correction where he says he corrected himself, and all credit to Professor Ossoff. He found the correction and sent it in and says, he corrected himself. But, no harm, no foul. And he was just reporting what he saw, which was reported news. And thank you for reporting the reported news. It seemed unbelievable. Good news is he corrected it himself. And we had 3 people working in the background, multiple people working in the background who found this new updated correction and sent it all in almost simultaneously. So thank you to
You said
everybody.
no harm, no foul, but
Yep.
I bet certain outlets will still run with it, and
So,
disinformation spreads super quickly, even if it's
Yes.
debunked later. So that's a
Good
so
point.
what is the
big problem.
corrected
The
figure?
harm was, Tyler, that today is Eid, and I haven't seen my parents for nearly 18 months. They live generally only 100 miles away.
Yeah.
And
It's
I didn't get to go and see them because my sister said, don't come.
Yeah, Dan makes a great point, by the way. I'm referring to no harm, no foul with regard to Professor Ossoff in this room, but Dan is exactly right. That could be an incredible amount of harm. And indeed, people are going to intentionally spread misinformation and take the previous uncorrected information and run wild with it. And that's unfortunate. And people will be victims of that misinformation, no doubt. And that definitely is harm, and definitely is foul. So your point's well
So,
taken.
Tyler, what is the corrected data? What's the corrected figure?
Good question. What is the real what is the real percent? Earlier he says this.
60% of hospitalization from COVID are currently from unvaccinated people.
That's what he meant to say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is essentially a twist, a kind of a slip.
Yeah.
2 little letters and it adjusts the whole meaning.
It means 40%. It means 40% are double vaccinated. Is that what they say?
Yeah, it turns out 60% of unvaccinated people are what's coming into the hospital, not vaccinated people. And as Chris...
And what we don't know is that other 40%, just to
Yeah.
make sure, unless somebody knows that the other 40% is double vaccinated or single vaccinated. Because in the UK, a lot of people are single vaccinated, 88%. So we just have to be careful with that too. Anyway,
What's
it's just
curious?
data.
What's curious is that the unvaccinated people showing up in the U.S. With the Delta virus already being dominant in many states, of those, 99% are unvaccinated. So reconciling those two numbers is still very problematic.
So moving right along, we've got
with the exception of which vaccines people receive, because the reduction in effectiveness with the Delta variant is much more problematic with AstraZeneca, which we haven't given in the U.S. Versus the mRNA vaccines.
Yeah, and so from Messi, the on-demand economy keeps on thriving around the world, with Rappi, a Colombian on-demand delivery startup, raising $500 million at a $5.25 billion valuation in Colombia. A $5 billion delivery company in Colombia. This shit is actually happening. It's funny because us old geeks will remember like Webvan in New York in '99, which failed, and everybody laughed. You idiots trying to do delivery in an hour. That's absurd. 2 hour, same day delivery? Are you out of your goddamn mind? And now it's,
Home grocer.
it's
Do you remember home grocer, Tyler?
home grocer, yeah. It's amazing. It's happening everywhere globally. It's wild. So Amazon Web Services bans accounts linked to Pegasus spyware. Coming in from Radeja via The Verge. Thank you for that. SoftBank leads $800 million investment for Revolut, who's now just growing like a goddamn weed. It's one of those neobanks, everybody. They're going to take over the planet. Watch out, you traditional banks. You're going to get beat the shit out of you until you figure out how to use data and analysis and hire some data scientists, but you're not going to do that. You're going to get smoked. So why can't Europe's richest country go digital, which is Germany, is the headline from Germany's leading publication, DW, Deutsche Welle, which I love, as I can't help repeat every time. It's my favorite European publication. And the article suggests a digital ministry. Germany and digitalization. Why can't Europe's country go digital? And in part, it's because if you ask, well, more so Berliners, but it's you can't. Berlin is all cash, by the way, and it's quite frustrating for Swedes where it's just 100% cashless. And it's a wild juxtaposition to go from 100% cashless to 100% cash, and Berliners don't want it any other way, and they will fight it any chance they get. And if you get into an interesting conversation about it, the inevitably the world war will come up, and they don't want to be tracked. And
Also, some of
yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
Tyler. Also, some of the regulations are um, adding constraints. So I worked with German pharmaceutical companies a lot, and a lot of the compliance required that doctors be sent documentation via fax, And so,
Yeah.
and this is like 2020. So a lot of it is baked into the rules. Some of it is, preferences. But yeah, I asked that same question. Why can't Germany
Yeah.
digitize?
Well, Maria,
Can't
who's
speak.
right next to you, Maria, you're in Berlin, aren't you? Any?
I actually just landed in Paris,
Uh-huh.
but normally I am in Berlin. Yes, and I wanted to just say that it's not 100% cash anymore. I think it's 95% cash now because we've made some progress over COVID, but still, yeah, largely we're talking cash so that we are amazing hospitality people don't have to pay any tax,
Uh-huh.
obviously.
Yeah. Thank you for the on the ground cultural context there. And yeah, Germany, yeah, doesn't digitization isn't high on their priority list culturally. And it's interesting. You're in Denmark, aren't you? By the way, Mahogany, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I'm in Denmark, but up until COVID stopped travel, I was in Germany 4 days out of 5
Yep.
each
But
week.
even Denmark is really interesting in that they were like kind of anti-Uber, essentially. Anything that doesn't seem to be really good for the workers, they don't want to see the people being taken advantage of by these big tech companies, essentially, is their kind of philosophy. Would you agree?
Correct. Uber was in Denmark for like 3 minutes and then they got kicked out, regulated out.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see how that part of the world is dealing with tech. and they're trying to make the best decisions for their people long term. And it's a really interesting balancing act of embracing and resisting innovations, you could call them, or different business models, you could call them. Evan?
I mean, I would argue their industrial sector is very digitized if you look at Bosch and Siemens and the
Sure.
industrial companies, but not on the maybe the smaller Mittelstand, the medium-sized companies they call them in Germany.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we'll see where everyone stands in 5 or so years. Scientists built a robotic hand that can play Nintendo's Super Mario Brothers all by itself. Fantastic. And I imagine it's from Japan, if I had to guess. Tesla's full self-driving subscriptions are now available for $199 per month. Thank you, Vinay. And Apple will delay bringing employees back to offices until at least October. As we had discussed, there was a small group of Apple employees who were very vocal about not wanting to come back to the office. And now that Delta's kicking back in, it looks like they're getting their wish come true. They've delayed the return to the office. Welcome, everybody, with the new chapter of Delta sweeping through America. Is it going to be fun?
Tyler, this is Ranjit. Yeah, I mean, there are two parts of the story. On one side, they reported that the first story came out like Delta is increasing, so that is why we are delaying it. And I think a few hours back, then this story came out like, yeah, we are delaying. I mean, there is second round of email circulation happening or the protest happening inside the company that we don't want to work from the office and we want remote. So there are two sides of the story.
Yeah, thank you.
Just following up on that Tesla subscription thing. I mean, that's obviously you can pay an extra $2,000 for the self-driving autopilot feature as just kind of like, any kind of an upgraded standard package. But this is basically like you can turn it on and off. You can pay by month. So it's just another, one of those. And trying to turn cars, since we all know now with the chip shortage, they're just a bunch of basically computer chips running everything from your transmission to your gear shift. It's all really wiring to like a more modular sort of approach to selling cars. So I think everybody thinks, okay, it's all about the batteries and electric with Tesla and Elon, but it's disrupting the business model with the direct sales, and I think he would love to have a more modular kind of approach to you don't even own the car. It's just everything is an upgrade that you can turn it on and off with an over-the-air update or some sort of software upgrade, so that once you basically take out the manufacturing advantage from the big three in Toyota and Honda, then there's really not a whole lot left.
Cool. Alrighty, moving on. And what do we got here? We got Russia warns U.S. over hypersonic missiles in Europe could lead to inadvertent something. What's that something? Let's see. The Russian embassy in the U.S. did not mince words in a tweet late Monday warning Washington not to deploy hypersonic missiles in Europe. The tweet begins with a red exclamation point and reads, "We would like to remind the Pentagon that potential deployment of any American hypersonic missiles in Europe would be extremely destabilizing. Their short flight time would leave Russia little to no decision time and raise the likelihood of an inadvertent conflict." The tweet comes as the U.S. reportedly turned its attention away from the railgun to hypersonic technology. The Pentagon press secretary held a press conference on Monday and was asked by a reporter about Russia's claim that it had successfully tested a new hypersonic cruise missile. Reuters reported that Russian President Vladimir Putin said the weapon has no equal in the world. And we are certainly aware of President Putin's claims, Kirby said, according to the transcript from the press release. And while I won't be getting into specifics or providing any kind of analysis on his claims, it's important to note that Russia's new hypersonic missiles are potentially destabilizing and pose significant risk because they are nuclear-capable systems. Kirby said the U.S. is working closely with allies and partners, including NATO, to try to check those destabilizing activities. The Pentagon did not immediately respond to an email. Al Jazeera reported that the missile was fired from a warship in the White Sea. Russia claimed that the missile traveled 7 times the speed of sound and nailed the target 217 miles away. 7 times the speed of sound. Holy shit.
Could I chime in here with things?
Yeah.
So 3 brief points with things. One, America is behind the rest of the world on hypersonic technology. It's not that we don't know how to do it. It literally goes back to the 1960s where you have like a Project Pluto, the flying crowbar. They literally have these scientists going in front of Congress and they say, we can build it. Do you want it? And then Congress is like, nah, we're so far ahead of everyone else. Why bother? And so that was literally been the case for a very long time with this idea of saying, we have access to advanced military technology, but we're just not going to allocate the resources for it. So what's happening here that's very interesting is that as other countries are going through our archives and going, wait, you can build that, and finding out it's not that hard to make, and then we're going, oh shit, I guess we need to make that thing now. That's one factor in there. Second point, and then the third one thing. Second point is that essentially the time to essentially target, theoretically, especially around nuclear weapons, there's this tradition of like being run by scientists and technocrats like to measure everything out. They'll say things like we need to have like 18 layers of not 18, we'll have like 6 layers of like launch permissions, and then we'll have like exact time to dance for what the missile ranges are, exactly how many times we have to make a decision, how many seconds for X, Y, Z. In practice, what happens is this guy's like jerry rigging things, saying, "Oh yeah, you need that nuke code. Yeah, it's 0000. Oh, you need like 2 people to do launch systems. Yeah, here's like me in a belt and like just pull a string from the other side of the room. I can pull the key from multiple places." It ends up being this almost like clown car brigade of like the highly technical solution, and then just people just making shit up as they go along. And because they have a whole bunch of national classification, classified access type kinds of things, a lot of this stuff ends up presenting this more James Bond, Jason Bourne type version of reality, rather than something that resembles more like a Charlie Chaplin or the guy writing a bomb at the Dr. Strangelove style. The last point to make is that the technology that we're using right now for communications for like Clubhouse, some of the earliest versions of voice over IP, some of the earliest versions of collaborative decision making were actually designed for saying we need to dial up 200 experts and make a decision the next 3 minutes of if we're doing a counter launch. So they'd have like polling systems, they'd have anonymized voices things. This is where you get kind of that weird council of whatever with the ominous voices kind of meme going in the conspiracy circles. It's actually based on original real tech. They had a video conference version as well that did like silhouettes. The idea being that if you basically obscure the who's saying the thing, and then you can basically reduce it directly to expertise, it would allow more effective group decision making under extremely tight time frames. We need to make a decision of do you launch, do you counter launch, etc. Now the reason why that ties in, completing all these points together, is what Russia is saying there is saying we're going to have to remake our command and control system if you do this. That's going to be a royal frickin' pain. Please don't force us to do that because we have to rebuild that. And if we do, we might make the decision more aggressive than we did otherwise. So it's this weird kind of, it's the thing that they're saying, but there's also like some subcontext background on that. We could host a breakout room in the Nuclear Weapons Club sometime if you want to talk about this one specifically, but there's a lot of context going into that one.
And now we know why intelligence agents are tracking our friend Chris around Clubhouse. So the pen. Let's see other fantastic headlines. Dan, you want to? I've got this amazing photo from Dan here in the DMs of a Henan, a province in China, which is having its own flooding, very similar to what they were just having in Germany and Austria, which you can now see in the Tech News.
Yeah, the point
account.
is it's just happening around the world. I mean, it's just warmer air holds more water, and when you have a drought, that water is being sucked up from the ground, put in the atmosphere, and it comes down in more concentrated places when it does rain. And we're just seeing the results of that, and we will continue to see the results of that.
One of the scariest videos I'm looking at right now, one of the most unbelievable kind of scary videos I've ever seen. I just tweeted it from the Tech News Twitter account as part of Dan's thing that he just sent in here. It's from Henan province, home to 94 million people. The capital, Zhengzhou, received 2 meters of rain in 1 hour. Is that right? No.
That doesn't sound possible.
20 centimeters of rain. It says 200 millimeters, which is 20 centimeters.
Not Noah grade.
No.
which
So
is still insane, by the way. I mean,
yes, 20
maybe
centimeters
physically
in an
possible.
hour seems impossible as well. But what's blowing my mind is what I just tweeted out. It shows a video thought to be from inside the subway, where people are inside of a subway car. You've seen that many times before. But this subway car, the people are submerged in water nearly up to their necks in the subway car. In the subway. Wow. That is wild.
That is amazing. Yeah,
And then
and
there's the other photo of the street where the cars are nearly submerged as well, similar to Germany.
look how calm they all look too. By
Yeah,
the way, which is
It's
pretty amazing
crazy.
in its own right. Actually, if you're up to your neck
It,
in
it,
water.
yeah, is this how they actually make this green Soylent tuna?
wow, it's
And
wild.
a related story I didn't share, but it should be, is that um, China is announcing weather warnings without mentioning climate change. So they talk, yeah. So they give the climate warning, but they don't mention climate change. And then the other related story is that some report that the world is still subsidizing fossil fuels to the tune of $3 trillion since 2015. Is that? If I'm Yeah, 2015, according to Bloomberg New Energy Finance. So we should know that we're not really taking it seriously yet. There's so much we could do. And one of the first things you probably should start doing is stop subsidizing fossil fuels, put a price on carbon, pass rules that stop all new fossil fuel infrastructure. And even Biden's not doing that. And so there's a lot of obvious, pretty intelligent things to do. And we should all know we're not doing it. So that's why we have to keep pushing. Frankly.
If we literally banned the fossil fuel plants like in a 2 week thing, like what would we lose? We'd lose the manufacturing. We'd lose probably like some HVAC. Like it'd be interesting to go through like the list of
You
like.
lose your economy.
Well, well immediately, sure, but it also creates immediate opportunities for people to fill the gap if you can plant. The reason why I say is that if we consider this more of like an emergency footing, like for what happens if we basically it's just adjust the time frame, it might basically allow us to basically land more of a resilience type kind of thing. And the idea is saying, well, we can either lose the economy now or we can lose it later. A lot of politicians
Well,
won't take that sort of positioning now, but when we start moving towards more of a militaristic type kind of thing and responding to sorts of these things, those sorts of options might enter onto the table. It might be interesting to see if there's certain mitigation things that can be made with more of a let's intentionally basically just take an immediate action rather than a smooth transition. It's not an option that's articulated very often, but it's something worth
there
considering.
are some people that think you do have to collapse the economy on purpose in order to avoid climate change. But at the very least, you can have degrowth, which is not collapsing the economy, but just stop growing it. And because you just have to stop certain emissions right away, the ones that aren't really needed but might be still part of the economy. But we're not, again, that's not really part of the discussion because we're not even doing the easy, obvious things that even help the economy by transitioning away. So the idea that we're going to discuss collapsing the economy on purpose, it's just not
It's not a
nothing.
smooth. It's not smooth oscillation. Politics essentially goes through extremes with stuff, where you've got like one or the other with things, and it tends to go through pretty rapid shifts when you do have that shift in posture. So I'm just saying,
Oh yeah,
it's a map.
climate
It's a
will do
radar map
that.
of possibility, is what I'm just saying.
Yeah, we will have degrowth, by the way, but it won't be on purpose. It won't be chosen. Climate will impose it on us, but we do have choices now that we're not taking that would certainly minimize that. Um, yeah, it's pretty crazy because we know this is kind of like physics, right? You kind of know what's going to happen. And people say there's a lot of recent stories because of all the recent heat waves. Oh, the climate scientists didn't predict the details of this. And as someone else once described, it's like saying, if you walk in front of a bus, I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly what's going to happen to you, but I can tell you it's going to be pretty bad and you really shouldn't do it. And that's, climate scientists have told us all we need to know about why we shouldn't continue on the path we're on, and we're just not listening. So I think it's less a question of physics and more a question of psychology and marketing, why we continue to go down a path that we know is not going to end well, and yet we just find ourselves really impossible to just deflect from what we're doing.
And Tyler, typically to get me off of this with things, but like scientists literally, whenever you basically ask them what action can we take, they say lower emissions and do more studies. I think we really basically banning the engineers from the discussion with the climate engineering side, and I don't just mean like spray aerosols. There's a whole class of technologies. Just as a general thing, we have a whole branches of technologies that we're not using to solve this, and we literally banned them from even researching them. And I think that essentially that was very, when we bring up the argument saying that it's been a longer term thing, is saying we haven't been listening. Well, we were told we need more studies, and to a politician that means, okay, well, we need more time.
Well,
And then all of a
climate
sudden,
scientists do not say we need more studies. I don't know any
well,
climate
no.
scientists
I'm
that
saying
say
this
that.
over the last few decades. Essentially, it's been you need to do. They recommend two options. They say we need lower emissions and we need more time, and essentially that's. Oh, sorry, we need more studies. Sorry, that. And so now we're saying we're out of time and we need to do something.
Well,
But the
speak.
That's
rhetoric's
not the climate scientists. I mean, 1988, Jim Hansen said we have to stop, burning fossil fuels. He said it very directly, and no one listened. And every climate scientist I know has been saying, not been waffling on that at all. I mean, yes, we all need more studies. We all need to understand things better, but nothing is needed to understand. No studies are needed to know that we have to phase out fossil fuels as quickly
Okay.
as possible.
Thank you, gentlemen. So we got to move on. Stopping the press. New York Times journalist was targeted by the Saudis with Pegasus. That's now being revealed. New York Times journalist Ben Hubbard was targeted with Pegasus spyware via a June 2018 SMS from the Saudis. And when journalists are targeted by Saudis, you should probably remember that Khashoggi was a journalist targeted by the Saudis, and things didn't. He very much did get hacked more than once. So it's not good to be a journalist targeted by the Saudis. Let's put it that way. We live in a desert. We have to act like it. Las Vegas faces reality of drought. That's the headline from The Guardian. Water investigators track down wasteful homeowners and public turf torn up to conserve scarce water supplies. We live in a desert. We have to act like it, Las Vegas says. And they're right. They do live in a desert, and they definitely do need to act like it. Modi accused of treason by opposition over India spyware
Holy hell.
disclosures. I predicted this would happen about, 24 hours ago, that he's targeted his political opponents. They're not going to take too kindly to that. In a democracy, Cal, did I not say shit's going to go down? It's just a matter of time. Now the headline from The
It's
Guardian.
going down now.
But
Modi.
if they've already escalated to that in 48 hours, good frack. I mean, how do you de-escalate from that? Good shit.
Yeah, Indian Prime Minister Modi accused of treason by opposition over India spyware disclosures. Indian Prime Minister under fire after phone numbers of political rivals appear in the data leak. As predicted. Typical. So, Financial Times editor among the 180 journalists identified by clients of spyware firm. What's not known is yet which country was targeting the Financial Times editor. But no doubt we will find out. GM announces their third electric pickup truck after the Hummer and the Silverado. GM's working on another electric vehicle truck in addition to the Hummer and the Chevrolet Silverado, and that's awesome. That's good news indeed. And PM faces growing backlash over plans for vaccine passports in clubs, and that's in the UK. The UK Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, faces growing backlash over plans for a vaccine passport for clubs, similar to what's happening in France, where they're burning down vaccine facilities because they don't want to get that vaccine, because they are now being told you're going to need it if you want to go into supermarkets and trains and buses and whatnot. And they're fighting back. So,
One more dynamic for the France with transportation specifically.
Yep.
So there's a lot of population located around the capital. They actually had the gasoline riots. Essentially, was like a few years ago, and a lot of that was tied. And they had like a special safety vest that's is a whole branding thing. But one of the dynamics is that for people that are in the rural areas, the lack of transportation access has been one of the big dividing lines in class structure there. Mm-hmm. And so when we're seeing like the burn the vaccine clinics or other things, it might be interesting to consider that within the context of they have had specific protests and riots specifically around whether transportation is something that basically people are able to use or not. So you might see that as sort of a political dynamic that's influencing there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, couple more here, many more here.
Tyler,
Yes.
just on the now it's making waves also in Europe here, because with Pegasus also Macron has been spied, and then the EU chief has been spied. It's just coming out right now in different languages,
Yep.
making some good waves, and apparently it were Moroccan authorities spying Macron. That's what it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. So,
Tyler,
yes.
we have some breaking news from our favorite company, Square. Square's launch Square Banking with checking account, banking, savings account, credit, debit cards plus loans.
And loans, that's right. And it's a really beautiful interface that they've come up with. And they're making it super simple: checking, savings, and loans. And it's a really 3 separate little features. You can sign up for a checking account, sign up for a savings account, and get loans. And it's going to be very interesting now that Square is a neobank, in addition to being a merchant payment gateway system and a POS system, point of sale system. And they continue to add every function and feature. And they even say, as part of the loans, if you're using Square as a merchant to accept credit cards, you're a little cake shop, and people are buying your cakes with their credit cards, and that's why you initially got Square. And then now you can also accept cash, because now it's a POS system. So if you're using Square as part of your business, Square knows how much money you're making through your payment system in your little cake shop. And now it makes it really easy for them to verify you for a loan, because they've seen how much money you've been making every month for a year, and they know how to calculate the risk much better than any traditional bank could. So it's really fantastic what they've got cooking up over there in Squareville. So
I just came back. Tyler, are you just sharing about Square launches the business bank accounts? Okay, sorry.
Yes, they're doing
Yeah, business
checking,
bank account. Yeah, that's right.
and savings and loans in a very incredibly elegant, simple, powerful interface. So Hungary. Spyware was used to monitor journalists in Hungary. Washington Post reporting the deployment of the tool, confirmed with forensics, shows a willingness to use tactics previously deemed out of bounds. But you've been caught. You've been caught, Victor Orban. You've been caught. They got the receipts. You were tracking your journalists. And let's see what happens to you, Victor. Let's see what happens in Hungary. Speaking of the ever-growing list of these, strongman types that were now had, it was really interesting, wasn't it? In the past few years, you've got Netanyahu was one of these strongman types that didn't really want to go down quietly, even when he was losing the election, and he's swearing, wanting to do the vote, doing the Trump routine of let's recount the votes in the whole game. So you've got Netanyahu, you've got Orban in Hungary, you've got Turkey with Erdogan. You had the U.S. with Trump. You've got Putin in Russia. Anyone else I'm missing? There's bound to be more. But what's interesting is they had a little secret tool we didn't know about until 24 hours ago, which was they could look at everybody's fucking messages. And they could kill all of their political opponents. Oh, Modi. Let's add Modi to the list, because now he's being tried for, what's the word? What are they going after him for?
He's accused of treason.
Treason. And it might turn out that Pegasus might be the best thing that ever happened. If it's used to remove Orban and Putin and all of these folks who were, if their population rise up and be like, now we know why no one could beat you in the elections. Now we know why the journalists weren't able to do the stories they were supposed to be doing. Now we know why. Oh, you greedy fuck. Oh, you've been robbing our country blind. And now you're going to have massive revolutions in multiple countries simultaneously. It's going to be fun.
So one of the dynamics here with things is that most of the people I've talked to, essentially, that are in diplomatic or high level positions with things, there's an ambient awareness that you're basically always tracked and monitors with things. So that's essentially something that they've had for a while. What's unusual about this is the fact that so many are at the same time being revealed as being under surveillance with things. So there's a sort of the safety in numbers component. You saw this dynamic with essentially and during the Snowden disclosures, where essentially which senators where and which representatives, how they felt and how they basically voted on a lot of the things around intelligence stuff. It's difficult to regulate an agency that has blackmail on you. And the thing is that you'd see essentially the level of how bold any of the politicians were basically willing to speak out against intelligence agency abuses, like Wyden would be a good example, Ron Wyden. There would be interesting versions of this that would be in direct proportion to whether or not it affected, oh, that's someone else's district, or that's some other things. Oh, wait, it affects us all. But it's a dynamic that's interesting here. One other thing I would caution is that when we're basically saying NSO group, Pegasus, 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 one of the long-term things, and you can see this with Snowden stuff, is that you have multiple programs from multiple groups, and you'll ask your allies to go spy on you so you can dodge domestic issues. So like the version for USA for Five Eyes is they'll say, hey, we're not allowed to monitor our own citizens, but Britain, you're spying on us. Can we just have the database you have of all of our citizens? By the way, here's the software to do that. There are versions of this all around the world. The thing that's interesting about this is that when Pegasus essentially is being distributed, it is one tool. It's a very powerful one, as we're seeing. It's not the only one. If we focus too much on just the Pegasus specifically and not the larger subject of politicians or intelligence agencies basically using these tools as abuse of power, erosion of democracy, we're going to miss the inevitable reform that says, well, we took down Pegasus, now we don't have to look at this anymore, rather than the larger things where the other 5 tools that we aren't hearing about. That's the important dynamic if we want to actually adjust the policy on this.
So what you're describing, Chris, is nation state data laundering as opposed to money laundering.
Very much so.
So, breaking news out of the UK from the BBC. Dominic Cummings, I discussed outing Prime Minister after 2019 election landslide. Dominic Cummings has revealed he discussed ousting Boris Johnson within days of the Conservatives winning the December 2019 election by a landslide. The Prime Minister's former chief advisor told the BBC it seemed that by mid-January 2020, Mr. Johnson did not have a plan, quote unquote. Mr. Cummings also alleged the Prime Minister's wife, Carrie Johnson, had tried to influence government appointments, but despite quitting Downing Street last autumn following a power struggle, he denied being motivated by revenge. Asked about Mr. Cummings' comments, a government spokesperson said ministers were fully focused on recovery from a pandemic and restoring the economy. I'm not at all familiar with UK politics, so I need somebody from the UK to help us with the cultural context here. He added, as soon as the election was won, her view was, why should it be Dominic and the Vote Leave team? Why shouldn't it be me that's pulling the strings?
I don't have a new angle to what the report says itself. I don't know if Karen's got a different angle. Uh, yeah, it's just.
Yeah, the really important thing here was that Dominic Cummings was the right-hand person. He was actually the campaign leader for Boris Johnson. So they worked, if you like, hand in glove. And a lot of people thought that he was the kind of Rasputin that was really pulling the strings. So it was quite a surprise that he was then ousted from government. And the only reason that he was ousted from government is because some of the Conservative MPs themselves thought he was a liability, and forced Boris's hand to lose him as the key advisor. The other thing is
that now we know it was because his phone was hacked and they saw something they didn't like.
Yeah, perhaps, but
that's the implication.
But in the process, he's been leaking quite a lot of the communication that one would have between 2 close pals. So, for instance, Dominic Cummings and Boris Johnson, and in one of the tweets, and this I think is quite inflammatory to some extent. He says that the virus seems to kill only the people above 80, so it's fine. we should just get back. And he doesn't really care about that. What he really cares about is getting the economy back online. And, and that coming from the Prime Minister, that he's actually trying to steer the country into a safe and secure mode for the next economic development, asks a lot of questions. So that is why, for instance, some of the chief scientists are now beginning to really question Boris's motives, and also, the authority that he has.
Okay.
Todd, a quick question,
Yep.
if I may. So with this Pegasus stuff, there's a common thread that I'm noticing in the hacks that have recently been happening, right? So first of all, the U.S. has been on the major receiving end of most of the hacks, and then there have been a couple of side ones. When you look at it from a pure political theory and from a ransomware hack attack sort of thing, okay, fine. You had Sweden, there was one, and then but most of it has purely been attack on the United States. That's one. And then you've got the Saudi Aramco hack, which is an ally of the United States. Israel is involved. And then you've got all of these attacks on big tech. Modi doesn't want big tech in in India. Nigeria has been exposed. And the two common things that I'm seeing is any country that didn't want big tech has become a big part of it. For example, Modi didn't want big tech, so there's clear, he's being accused of treason. Some other countries will come up probably in this that were against big tech. What about the United States? Has anyone major been named out of the United States that has been hacked? I mean, is this leading to some sort of election theory in the United States? And does this tie up with Trump and Biden in the future of the election? And somehow, I mean, is this developing into some sort of thesis around that? Are we missing something here?
Well, there's still going to be a lot of fruit to shake out of the tree. We'll see. Time will tell in the next few days. There's a lot of stuff's going to be revealed very shortly, but it's a little too early.
We are watching a stage play that has been very carefully prepared for us, and now we're watching Act 1, and it's like, okay, then we'll see Act 2, and then we'll see Act 3, and then it's like,
I'll just summarize it in one sentence from what I think may actually play out. And Mike, you're going to jump at this, and I might be crazy, but to me, it looks like something is being done here in preparation for big tech to come into power and possibly even Trump. I'll leave it at that. I might be crazy.
We'll see.
We will see. So, interesting, though, that Trump probably did have access to, separate from Pegasus, America has its own versions and can do similar things, and that's very concerning in and of itself.
Pegasus is news to us as the public with things, not to the politicians involved. The new thing for the politicians that's shocking for them isn't that the tools exist or that they're under surveillance, it's who's using it. They're like, oh, you're not supposed to use it on me, or that person isn't supposed to use it on me. That's the part that's new about this, and so that outrage is genuine. But the thing is, the awareness of these tools existing and being used, that is something that has been an active part of political, like, if you're doing anything with power, they have to operate with that just doing basic governance. That is one of the aspects of governance in democracy that is not well known amongst most people. You could see it on the edges of the Snowden stuff with things, but it's one of these dynamics that isn't properly accounted for, and people are looking at the larger issues on this one.
Okay, moving right along here, we've got Elon Musk brutally mocks Jeff Bezos for spaceship that can't reach orbit. SpaceX's Elon Musk isn't buying Blue Origin's promises of delivering those who can afford it to quote-unquote space. And
mine's bigger.
The Amazon founder and Blue Origin CEO Jeff Bezos is getting ready to strap into a seat and board his space company. This article is obviously from several hours ago because he has gone up and back. Musk but not everybody agrees that Blue Origin is going to space. SpaceX CEO and noted loudmouth Elon Musk, for instance, isn't buying it. And Musk spent the weekend replenishing memes that poked fun at Bezos' flight plans. One meme in particular elicited a reaction from Musk, a 4-panel Star Wars themed meme about Bezos going to space, but not orbital. And haha, says Musk, the jab isn't exactly unwarranted. Blue Origin may be taking Bezos for a ride of his lifetime to the how do you pronounce it, Chris? Carmen.
Carbon. I think it's Carbon line. I haven't heard it pronounced other ways.
Yeah.
Don't ask me about pronunciation because I'm really bad about this in
Carmen
general. But I
line,
think it's
the
Carbon
boundary
line.
between Earth, atmosphere, and space. But 62.
They actually set that. They set that early on because literally this was the exact sort of shit that they were basically worrying about. Like the National Air is like a French like aeronautics society. They had to deal with this a lot in the early days of flight of people saying, "Oh, I'm flying at this thing, and so they literally said, "Look, just set it here, and then when we do space later, we'll set it here just to avoid this little thing." So it's not like it's not that this arbitrary line came out of nowhere. It came from a history of a lot of people going, I got here first. They wanted to set it so that people could have a clear reference point.
Yeah. So,
I mean, the counterpoint to this, obviously, billionaire pissing contest is I posted something, unfortunately, behind the paywall from Quartz about how, the space war is really not about space travel for billionaires, but about, again, getting more data from the satellites, which is we're just at the cutting edge of. I mean, what you can do just with to evaluate for energy usage down to I know people have used like satellite data just to evaluate in kind of current countries, like what lights are on at what time, literally down to the minute. So you cannot even identify like political corruption just through that kind of data. And obviously, the better it gets, just the more use cases we're going to have.
Precision agriculture, whether a tree falls in the forest, logging things. I mean, like we could actually have a complete carbon accounting cycle thing where we could actually count for every last ton with things automatically on an hourly basis. That's the sort of thing we're going to have in the near future. It's insane. Also, omniscience things. If you're worried about surveillance now, imagine when every single person, when you walk outside, it's a thing. We already have Gorgon Stare. When you put the newest algorithms on that, I mean, it's beautiful. I actually, weirdly, I used to think this was like the ultimate. There is no counter to this, and then I realized, oh wait, cheap lasers actually can take out most of these things. So it's more of a what we're comfortable with doing. Again, we're going to have all those things you're saying about Pegasus right now, about who's being surveilled and other things. We're going to have round 2 in about 10, 20 years about the GIS data and all the fun things you can do with CubeSats when we've got hundreds of thousands of these things or millions like running up in the sky. It's good. It's a weird world we're running into.
So do not travel. USA Today says the CDC, State Department, raised travel alert for UK due to 50,000 new COVID cases in a day for the first time in 6 months. And the travel warning comes to the UK, do not travel. Also, what else do we got here? Some really interesting one. A Chinese driverless car startup.
Welcome to Freedom Day. Do not travel. I love it.
Chinese driverless car startup WeRide makes its first acquisition in an anonymous trucking firm, which makes sense. And EV plane speed race, a little tech firm trying to break the airspeed record with an EV airplane. Electroflight has built the eNXT, which it hopes will break the electronic airspeed record. Twitter suspends Marjorie Taylor Greene over misleading COVID post. Georgia Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene has been a vocal critic of vaccines and the use of masks, and now she's no longer on Twitter. Why black TikTok?
Well, no, for 12 hours.
Huh?
For 12 hours. That's it.
Okay.
She was off for 12 hours.
Why black TikTok creators have gone on strike. Backlash for cultural appropriation on the video making app means no viral dance videos for a while. And Royal Navy tests drones above and below waves. A broad exercise saw the Navy test scouts, resupply, and underwater reconnaissance drones. And more drones in the military. And Sentinel-1 closes up 21% in its debut as the highest valued cybersecurity IPO. Cybersecurity company Sentinel-1 made its market debut Wednesday on the New York Stock Exchange and is now trading under the ticker symbol S. And speaking of IPOs, Robinhood founders to be worth over $5 billion as fintech IPO piles up. Based on the middle of Robinhood's expected IPO price range provided on Monday, co-founders Vlad and Baiju each own stakes worth about $5 billion. And India Today has an article titled about virologist named Miss Kang or Kong reacts after being named. Her name appears in the Pegasus list, and she says, "I do nothing controversial as a virologist, but of course, They're not interested in what you do isn't controversial. It's just incredibly valuable as a virologist. And indeed, countries want to know how to make vaccines, and they're willing to snoop on people who might be building them. Concrete buildings can be turned into rechargeable batteries, but for now, a square meter of the building material holds roughly the energy of 2 AA batteries. Concrete is the world's most consumed material after water. Because it already surrounds us in the built environment, researchers have been exploring the idea of using concrete to store electricity, turning buildings into giant batteries. And NSO clients spying disclosures prompt political rows across the world in India. The Guardian. Pegasus NSO clients spying disclosures prompt political rows across the world. Yeah, it's going to get really crazy really soon. That's what I just said. It's prompting political fights across the world. Concerns that phone hacking software may be used to spy on political opponents spark fury in political camps around the world. Indeed, it's going to be wild in the next several weeks. Doctors say all cancers can switch off to evade treatment. Scientists have discovered that all cancers fit into one of two categories. This could have substantial impact on how future treatments are developed. New heat-tolerant COVID-19 vaccine readies for human trials. A new heat-tolerant vaccine has delivered strong preclinical results. The vaccine can remain stable for up to 30 days at up to 37 degrees Celsius. Wow, that's real heat indeed. That would be fantastic.
That's huge.
Yeah.
By the way, for people that are interested in this, Gavi has an amazing GAVI. Gates has some funding on there with things, but one thing that's really interesting about it is that they're the long-term group for vaccination protocols in like developing countries. One of their largest physical investments has been all the infrastructure around refrigeration technology, and I can have like solar-powered fridges, insulation containers, like all sort of things, so you can basically do vaccines in the middle of nowhere. A lot of that stuff was something that was more developing country factor. We're seeing it in very much developed countries and all the things now with essentially with the COVID factor. But for people who want to have a historical context on that, they're a fascinating organization to look at. And they've got a lot of stories. And what's also beautiful about it is that with so much misinformation about COVID, and it's like a scorched earth trying to figure out who, what, where, when, why. It's really helpful for going back, like 5-10 years and finding something that is really useful as like an anchor point for how stuff works and how it can and be influenced and stuff like that. It's a fascinating organization. Gavi, G-A-V-I.
So an Event Horizon telescope snaps close-up of a supermassive black hole jet. Astronomers have taken a close-up image of a radio jet emitting by a supermassive black hole for the first time. And you can see it. I just tweeted it out on the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. No trace of mRNA vaccine found in breast milk. Gene found that helps identify COVID-19 early. According to Reuters, a roundup of some of the latest scientific studies on the novel coronavirus, an effort to find treatments and vaccines, but it doesn't come through in breast milk. Thank God for that. Well, maybe not. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad. But Mural raises $50 million Series C, and Mural is a digital whiteboarding service, which is going to help everybody working remotely. That's fantastic. And back to nature in the light of the wine in harmony with nature. Let's skip that one. And blast hits bus carrying Chinese workers in Pakistan, killing at least 10 people. The casualties include at least 6 Chinese citizens who were on their way to the hydropower project under construction in Upper Pakistan. And this being reported by South China Morning Post. And for those who don't know, China has invested very, very, very heavily into Pakistan, specifically because Pakistan gives China a very convenient way to get via land from China, only through Pakistan exclusively, down to the Persian Gulf. And that makes it very easy to start shipping oil over land and not over water around India when you don't have a navy to defend your oil shipments. So this is of an incredible importance, the Pakistan partnership for China. And China urges Pakistan to severely punish bus attackers after blast kills 13, including 9 Chinese nationals, while Pakistani officials said the nature of the blast was under investigation. The Chinese embassy in Islamabad said its nationals had come under attack. The bus was on its way to the Dasu hydropower project, part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor under construction in the Khyber province. And there's photos of the bus blast. And condemning the attack, Foreign Ministry spokesperson urged Pakistan to severely punish the perpetrators and eagerly protest the safety of Chinese nationals. And very interesting to see who it might be. I'm just going to go ahead and make a little prediction that it's Uyghurs, actually, because there's lots of Uyghurs who have managed to escape, because the area that borders Pakistan and China is East Turkmenistan, or where the Uyghurs are. And so many of the Uyghurs who escaped China go into Pakistan. But lately, those Uyghurs, and I have documentaries I can tweet out that I've seen and shared to some friends here on stage, are now being silent. They're trying to create schools to teach Uyghur culture in Pakistan to Uyghur children, teaching the Uyghur language, teaching the dress and everything. And China is telling Pakistan to shut down those schools because they don't want the Uyghurs to exist. And so it could be that the Uyghurs are attacking, because where this happened near the Khyber Pass is, maybe the Uyghurs are able to fight back against China in Pakistan like they cannot do in China. That would be very interesting, and let's see what happens. When, no doubt they're going to find out who did it, and I'm willing to bet that Uyghurs trying to get some revenge. So let's see. Russia unveils a new fighter jet with stealth capabilities and AI features and is intended to compete with the U.S. F-35 Lightning II, called Russia's calling this the Checkmate jet. Was unveiled at a Russian air show attended by Putin himself. The fighter jet is said to make its maiden flight in 2023 and boasts AI features that can fly at 1.8 to 2 times the speed of sound and has a range of 1,864 miles. And you can now see this new Checkmate jet, and you can see Vladimir Putin admiring it with a nice vanilla ice cream cone. And let's tweet this sucker out so you can see this beautiful new Checkmate jet. And that I've now caught up. I have 8 more, no exaggeration, 8 more hours of tweets to go through to get to find out all the best tweets in the last 8 hours. So if you have tweeted to the Tech News Twitter account in the last 8 hours, I promise I will get to them before we meet tomorrow, and we will share all the best headlines and the biggest headlines. But we have an announcement that tomorrow we're going to start 1 hour earlier due to our friend Aaron Smith here on stage. We're going to do 1 hour warm up all around DeFi. So it'll be Tech News Around the World DeFi edition, masterfully moderated by our friend Aaron Smith here on stage, along with others. And it'll be a fun warm up room, if nothing else. So please do join us 1 hour early tomorrow. That's, Aaron, something I'm leaving out maybe?
No, that's perfect, Tyler. I mean, it's for everybody, novices, subject matter experts. Like, just bring your stories, bring your experience. We just want to get some chat going around this topic and see what people out there are doing, and just listen and learn.
Cool. Alrighty then. We've got the MedTech news
It's up and running.
Up and running now,
up
and I
running.
believe
Heyman's got it going.
Yep. And very
and then there's,
shortly, Ben's got the
Bitcoin Beginner.
Well,
Bitcoin
not only
Beginner,
it's a very special one as well, because Ben, if I remember correctly, it's tomorrow is the B Word conference, right?
Yes,
that's tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna head on over to the MedTech room for a bit, and then some people will go to Ben in the Bitcoin Beginner room. But thank you to everybody for another fun Tech News Around the World, and we will